Chapter 3276. Dragon Island. In the main hall, the corpses and blood from the battle had been cleaned up. The leaders of the various factions returned to their seats, but the birthday banquet was still not over. However, compared to before, the atmosphere in the main hall was clearly much more oppressive. The Dragon Island Lord's face was gloomy as he stared at the nameless treasure map in his hand, not saying a word. The leaders of the various factions did not dare to speak loudly. When they communicated, they would either speak softly or use their divine senses. No one wanted to attract the Dragon Island Lord's attention at this time and get themselves killed. Who among you knows anything about this treasure map or how to refine it? After a while, the Lord of Serpent Island looked around, raised the nameless treasure map in his hand, and asked in a deep voice. The leaders of the various factions all shook their heads. Take it and pass it around. Whoever can find a way to decipher this map will be rewarded handsomely. The Dragon Island Lord handed the nameless treasure map to a Grand Empyrean on his left. He was still unwilling to give up. If he could open the treasure map, who knew how many treasures were hidden inside? He definitely had a chance to take another step and reach the Tao-controlling realm. He had a feeling that the opportunity to break through was in this nameless treasure map. This was Dragon Island. With him in the main hall, he was not worried that someone would dare to run away with the nameless treasure map. The Grand Empyrean on his left checked it repeatedly and said, "There seems to be a universe inside this treasure map that conflicts with the space in the storage bag. That's why it can't be put in the storage bag." "Do I need you to tell me that?" The Dragon Island Lord sneered. He had always carried this treasure map with him and kept it close to his chest. The treasure map could devour anything, so there was naturally a space inside. The Dragon Island Lord glared at the Grand Empyrean and said coldly, "What? You want to put it in the storage bag?" "Oh no." The Grand Empyrean was so frightened that he quickly denied it. His hand trembled, and the nameless treasure map fell on the table. "I don't think you dare." The Dragon Island Lord snorted coldly. Just at this moment, the nameless treasure map on the table suddenly floated up on its own as if it was being controlled by someone. The Dragon Island Lord's eyes lit up. He quickly looked at the Grand Empyrean and asked, "What did you just do?" Such a situation had never happened before. "It's none of my business." The Grand Empyrean was stunned by the Island Lord's question. His mind was in chaos and he couldn't speak coherently. After that, under the gazes of everyone present, a figure walked out from the nameless treasure map and stood in the hall. Everyone took a closer look. This person had black hair and green robes. He was actually the Primal Chaos Palace Master who had just been devoured by the nameless treasure map. "You're not dead?" The Lord of Jiao Dragon Island was not angry. Instead, he was overjoyed and his eyes lit up. This Su Zimo was the first person to come out of the nameless treasure map. This also meant that this person definitely knew how to enter and exit the nameless treasure map. Flood Dragon Island Lord stood up and said, "Su Zimo, tell me how to enter the treasure map. You and those ants from the Chaos Palace may still have a chance to live." His thoughts were all on the nameless treasure map and he didn't notice that Su Zimo had already stepped into the Tao-comprehending realm. Su Zimo smiled gently. "It's not certain who will be able to survive." Just as he finished speaking, figures flew out of the universe fortune diagram one after another like a school of carps crossing the river. In the blink of an eye, they all arrived at the Dragon Palace. There were more than 3,000 people. The lowest cultivation level was a heavenly venerable. There were hundreds of Grand Empyreans. The various leaders gasped when they saw this. They were all dumbfounded and horrified. The Dragon Island Lord's birthday banquet included the leaders of the various second-rate factions. There were only slightly more than 1,000 people. Moreover, they were all heavenly venerates and Grand Empyreans. There were more than 30 supreme heavenly venerates who had appeared from the nameless treasure map. The Dragon Island Lord's eyes widened as he watched this scene in disbelief. He was bewildered and panicked to the extreme. What was going on? Why did so many experts appear all of a sudden? That's the Dragon Island Lord. Kill him. Su Zimo waved his hand casually and said indifferently, Yang Emo and the others came to the Dragon Palace and felt the environment of the great wide world. They breathed in the aura of the great wide world and were immersed in it. They didn't attack immediately. Now that they heard Su Zimo's order, they came back to their senses and looked at the Dragon Island Lord with cold eyes. Fellow Taoists, listen to me. I was the one who obtained the nameless treasure map. The Dragon Island Lord hurriedly explained. Seeing that these experts seemed to be obeying Su Zimo's orders, he vaguely guessed that whoever controlled the nameless treasure could control these experts. However, Yang Emo and the others didn't listen to his explanation at all and swarmed forward. The Dragon Island Lord hurriedly propped up a world and activated his bloodline, wanting to resist. However, under the siege of more than 30 supreme heavenly venerates, he was killed on the spot in less than a breath's time. In the universe creation diagram, there were many Tao venerates suppressing them. They had always held back in their battle and stopped when the battle started. Now, there were no more restraints. Coupled with the fact that it was their first time in the great wide world, they were unusually excited and wanted to rush to attack. Just the Dragon Island Lord alone was not enough for them. It was a pity that the overlord of the Jiao Dragon Island had the universe fortune map in his possession for many years, but he was unable to do anything about it. Instead, he died under the treasure map. When the leaders of the various factions saw that, their faces turned pale and they fled in all directions. Yang Emo and the other heavenly venerates attacked and killed in all directions. How could the leaders of the various factions resist? Even a supreme heavenly venerate of Dragon Island could suppress them. Now, more than 30 supreme heavenly venerates were a disaster for the various factions. It didn't take long for the leaders of the various forces to be slaughtered. Alright, everyone, follow me to the 10,000 Beasts Ridge. Su Zimo was worried about the safety of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge and asked Yang Emo and the others to stop chasing and follow him in the direction of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge. At that moment, the 10,000 Beasts Ridge was already surrounded by the armies of Dragon Island, Giant Spirit Valley, Blackbird Forest, and Frost Snowfield. More than half of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge had been conquered. To be precise, there was no obstruction at all. The four armies charged straight in and killed their way to a mountain peak of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge. Many cultivators of the Primal Chaos Palace were hiding on this mountain peak. There was a restriction array around the mountain peak. Under the constant attacks of the four armies, the array was already showing signs of collapsing. Su Ru, Chen Qianhe, Meng Shi, and the others of the Primal Chaos Palace looked at the army outside the mountain peak with pale faces and despair in their hearts. The array outside the mountain peak was about to collapse. At that time, they would all be buried here. I didn't expect the Primal Chaos Palace to reach this step in the end. With a lonely smile, Su Rue smiled. Chen Qianhe sighed softly. I wonder how the Palace Lord is doing and whether he can escape from Dragon Island alive. As long as the Palace Lord is still around, the Primal Chaos Palace still has a trace of hope. Haha. Grand Heavenly Venerate Long Yu heard their conversation and laughed loudly. The Primal Chaos Palace Lord died on Dragon Island a long time ago. Not even his corpse is left. Su Rue and the other two's eyes dimmed. Sorry to disappoint you. At that moment, a voice came from afar. End of chapter. Chapter 3277. Hearing this voice, Su Rue and the other two trembled. The palace master didn't die? Everyone from Chaos Palace subconsciously looked towards the source of the voice and saw a green figure flying over from the distant horizon. It was Su Zimo. The palace master has already reached the Tao comprehending realm. Su Rui was observant and immediately saw that Su Zimo's cultivation had increased. Chen Qianhe and Meng Shi were also overjoyed. Could the Chaos Palace still be saved? But soon, looking at the army that covered the mountains, a trace of worry rose in their hearts. Even if the palace master had reached the Tao comprehending realm and had heaven-defying combat strength, he was only one person. The mountain array here was about to shatter, and the palace master could not split himself to save everyone in the Chaos Palace. Even if the Chaos Palace could be saved, how many of them could be spared? He didn't die? Grand Empyrean Long Yu frowned slightly and lowered his head in thought. A trace of unease rose in his heart. This person could actually escape from Dragon Island? Even Father couldn't stop him? Right at this moment, a commotion broke out in the crowd. The four armies were thrown into chaos, and there was an uproar. "What are you panicking for?" Grand Emperor Long Yu was restless and scolded with a frown. "He's only one person. Can he overturn the heavens?" But his words had no effect at all. Not only that, but some of the demonic beasts in the army had already begun to flee. Grand Emperor Long Yu suddenly felt an earth-shattering pressure surging over, almost engulfing him. His heart skipped a beat and he looked up. Behind Su Zimo, at the end of the horizon, there was a large group of black figures rushing over. Each of them had a terrifying aura, and they were all Empyrean powerhouses. There were even Grand Empyreans and Supreme Empyreans among them. This Grand Emperor Long Yu sucked in a cold breath and couldn't help but take a step back. His scalp tingled. The leaders of the other three factions were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They were stunned on the spot. Where did so many Empyrean powerhouses come from? Could it be that the Five Venoms Palace, a first-rate faction in the Canopy State, had appeared? Impossible. Most of the life forms in the Five Venoms Palace were poisonous creatures. And the group of Empyrean powerhouses behind Su Zimo had vigorous vitality. They were clearly all life forms. Everyone from the Primal Chaos Palace looked at this scene in disbelief. Could it be that so many Empyrean powerhouses were all helpers that Palace Lord invited? They couldn't be blamed for being in disbelief. The scene before their eyes had completely shattered everyone's understanding of the world. Not to mention, where could they gather so many Empyrean powerhouses from in such a short time? Even if he could gather these Empyrean powerhouses together, could it be that they would listen to Su Zimo's orders? Su Zimo stepped into the Tao-comprehending realm and had just become a celestial venerable. And among the more than 3,000 powerhouses before him, there were Grand Empyreans and Supreme Empyreans. "I heard that you want to destroy the Primal Chaos Palace to celebrate your father's birthday." Su Zimo asked Great Heavenly Venerate Long Yu when he landed in front of the mountain where the people of the Primal Chaos Palace were. Grand Emperor Long Yu was intimidated by Su Zimo's aura and couldn't speak for a while. Even his voice was trembling. More than 3,000 Empyrean powerhouses clustered around Su Zimo, who would not be afraid when they saw it. He doesn't need it anymore. After Su Zimo finished speaking, he casually threw a bloody head in front of Great Heavenly Venerate Long Yu. It was the head of Flood Dragon Island Lord. Great Heavenly Venerate Long Yu exclaimed. Su Zimo looked around with a cold expression and waved his sleeves. "Kill." On the way here, he had already roughly told Yang Mo and the others about the situation that the Primal Chaos Palace and the living beings of plants had faced over the years. When the Empyreans heard this, they were already filled with resentment. With Su Zimo's order, more than 3,000 Empyrean powerhouses charged into the army and started a massacre. This was really like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. And it was more than 3,000 fierce tigers coming down the mountain. There were hundreds of thousands of people gathered in the army, but under the charge of more than 3,000 Empyreans, they were completely unable to resist and were utterly defeated. Before Su Zimo could make a move, Great Heavenly Venerate Long Yu was instantly killed by Supreme Empyrean Yang Mo. Yang Mo was known as a Supreme Empyrean and his combat strength was indeed extraordinary. To be precise, when Su Zimo arrived with everyone, there was no longer any suspense in this battle. The three leaders of Giant Spirit Valley, Mystic Bird Forest and Frost Snowfield were already dead. The other Empyrean experts did not last long before they were killed by Yang Mo and the others. The remaining cultivators fled in all directions, defeated for thousands of li, and were even less of a threat. Su Zimo was stunned for a moment before returning to his senses. He was truly not used to such a situation. Up till this point of his cultivation in Tianhuang mainland, he had fought countless battles and experienced countless dangers. When had he ever had such an easy time? The two battles on Flood Dragon Island and Myriad Beast Ridge were settled without him making a move. Seeing that the situation was settled, Su Zimo descended on the mountain peak below and dispelled the surrounding spirit formations. Everyone from the Primal Chaos Palace hurried over in surprise and joy. "Palace Lord, what's going on?" Mengshe could not help but ask, "Where did you find so many helpers? Furthermore, they are all plant life forms." Su Zimo smiled gently and replied simply, "These are all descendants of the Primal Chaos sacred ground of the past." "Palace Lord, you are truly resourceful and blessed." "Ha, our Primal Chaos Palace is truly going to rise this time round." Everyone from the Primal Chaos Palace laughed excitedly. Su Zimo was relieved as well. Previously, although the Primal Chaos Palace occupied the Myriad Beast Ridge and controlled 12 origin mines, they did not have many people, Empyrean experts and supremacies. It was easy to suppress the experts of the other races, but it was difficult to subdue them for the Primal Chaos Palace. Furthermore, after so many years of oppression, the plant life forms of the Primal Chaos Palace were extremely hostile towards the other races. Even if they could temporarily subdue the experts of the other races and leave them in the Primal Chaos Palace, there would be many conflicts in the long run and they would become hidden dangers. Now, with the help of the plant life forms in the Qianquan creation diagram, the dilemma faced by the Primal Chaos Palace was perfectly resolved. With Empyrean Yang Maji guarding the Primal Chaos Palace, not only could the territory continue to expand, but Su Zimo did not have to personally come out to solve many problems. More than 3,000 Empyrean experts were enough to deal with most situations. No second-class force would dare to provoke them. This way, Su Zimo had enough time to cultivate in seclusion. After ascending to the Great Thousand World, Su Zimo had not calmed down to cultivate. Previously, the 10 years of seclusion in the Myriad Beast Ridge were also intermittent. To Su Zimo, the most important thing was to raise his cultivation level. As long as he could take another step forward and cultivate to the greater success of the Tao comprehension realm, his essence spirit could break through again and advance to the Tao manipulation realm. This way, he could release the Tao masters in the Qianquan creation diagram. With the help of hundreds of Tao masters, not to mention the canopy state, even the entire Southeast territory could do whatever he wanted. At that time, the Primal Chaos sacred ground would rise. End of chapter. Chapter 3278. A month later, Su Zimo released the supremacies from the universe creation diagram. Under the leadership of Yang Mo and the other Empyrean powerhouses, the Primal Chaos Palace had already conquered the surrounding territories of the Black Goat Ridge, Giant Spirit Valley, Blackbird Forest, and Frost Snow Plains, bringing them into the territory of the Primal Chaos Palace. Everywhere it passed, it was as if it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. No one could stop it. Serpent Dragon Island had also been conquered by the Chaos Palace. The number of source ores under the Chaos Palace's control had already exceeded 100. During the Serpent Dragon Island Lord's birthday banquet, he didn't get any of the gifts sent by the leaders of the various factions. Instead, they fell into Su Zimo's hands. On this day, the Chaos Palace's heavenly venerables gathered in the Chaos Palace. Su Zimo sat on the main seat, and Su Rui, Chen Qianhe, and Mengshe were also present. "My lord, why did you call us back? Did something happen?" Su Zimo looked at Su Rui and nodded. "You tell me." Su Rui said, "The end of the year is approaching, and the Five Venoms Palace's envoy is about to arrive. Right now, our Chaos Palace's territory has expanded and we've occupied 138 source ores. We're already considered the largest second-tier faction in the Canopy Guy state. The amount of source ores we have to hand over is also quite shocking, so we have to prepare in advance." Five Venoms Palace? Yang Mo frowned. These days, he had heard that the Five Venoms Palace was the only first-tier faction in the Canopy Guy state, the true overlord. "Why do we have to hand over source ores to them?" Yang Mo asked with a frown. Su Rui smiled bitterly. "There's no choice. The Five Venoms Palace has a lot of people, and they have a Tao Venerate expert overseeing it. The other factions don't dare to violate this rule. Actually, it's not just the Canopy Guy state. It's the same in the other states." Yang Mo asked again, "How much do we have to hand over?" 70%. Su Rui answered. "What?" Yang Mo was furious. He slammed the table and shouted, "So much! They're going too far. I can't take this lying down." The other heavenly venerables also had angry expressions. With a helpless expression, Su Rue replied, "Over the years, the 108 provinces in the southeastern region have been occupied by the foreign races, and this has always been the case. For example, in the Canopy State, the various second-tier powers have to hand over 70% of their origin stones to the Five Venoms Temple every year. The various second-rate forces did not dare to disobey this order, so they could only turn around and deal with the third-rate forces under their command, demanding that the third-rate forces all hand over 90%. Third-tier factions don't dare to disobey, or they'll be wiped out. After all the plundering, third-tier factions can only obtain 10% of source ores each year, which isn't enough for cultivation. Therefore, many battles and killings often erupt between the third-grade forces. The primal chaos palaces and Empyrean powerhouses all frowned when they heard this. The Five Venoms Palace relied on their strength to be unshakable. That was why they were so unbridled and enjoyed the fruits of others' labor. Under this pressure, the other factions in the Kanagai state could only kill each other if they wanted to obtain more cultivation resources. Yang Imo asked, "Previously, did the Primal Chaos Palace hand over 70% every year?" Nodding his head, Su Rue replied, "Ever since we occupied the Myriad Beast Ridge, we've been handing over 70% every year. However, the Palace Master has ordered us not to plunder the Genesis ores of the other third-rate forces." Yang Imo glanced at Su Zimo as he thought to himself, "This master is still a little too weak. He doesn't have any edge, and he doesn't even dare to resist being bullied like this. However, he's quite benevolent and didn't bully the weak." Su Zimo did not say anything, his expression indifferent. Although he was extremely conflicted when the Five Venoms Palace came to collect Genesis ores over the past 10 years, he did not show it and allowed Su Rue and the others to hand over the Genesis ores as per normal. Firstly, he was not strong enough, and it was unwise to become enemies with the Five Venoms Palace over such a small matter. Even if he could survive, the Primal Chaos Palace's people would not be able to escape death. To him, the most important thing was to seize the time to cultivate and raise his cultivation level. Secondly, even if only 30% of the Genesis ores were left, with Qinglian's true body, he could gather as much Genesis Qi as possible to help the Primal Chaos Palace's people cultivate. At the very least, the Primal Chaos Palace's people did not lack cultivation resources. "Palace Master, do you have other arrangements for us to be gathered here?" Su Zimo said, "I'm telling you this as a reminder. Hand over 70% of the Genesis ores as per normal and don't clash with the Five Venoms Palace for the time being." Yang Imo and the others fell silent. They had cultivated in the universe creation diagram since they were young and had never suffered any setbacks. Each and every one of them was proud and arrogant, and naturally did not fear the Five Venoms Palace. Of course, they also knew in their hearts. The Five Venoms Palace had a Tao sovereign expert overseeing it. The Tao sovereigns in the universe creation diagram could not come out, and it was indeed impossible for them to fight against the Five Venoms Palace. Su Zimo continued, "In addition, the Primal Chaos Palace's territory is already large enough. Stop expanding." "Why is that?" Yang Imo frowned deeply and could not help but ask. Even his tone had changed. It was fine if they followed Su Zimo's arrangements and handed over 70% of the Genesis ores to the Five Venoms Palace. But now, they were not allowed to continue expanding? Yang Imo said in a low voice, "We have to hand over 70% of the Genesis ores every year, and we don't have many cultivation resources to begin with. If we don't plunder the other third-tier factions, we can only invade the territories of the second-tier factions. Furthermore, the Southeast territory belongs to the plant race to begin with. It's reasonable for us to take it back since the alien races are occupying it." "That's right. The alien races have bullied us for so many years. We should have chased them out long ago. Palace Master, there's no need to sympathize with them." The other heavenly venerables spoke as well. Su Zimo's expression did not change as he said, "Right now, the Primal Chaos Palace is already the largest second-tier faction in Kanagai State. If you continue expanding, you'll definitely attract the attention of the Five Venoms Palace and bring trouble to yourself. Oomph. A supreme heavenly venerable said coldly, "Do you think our primal chaos sacred land is afraid of the Five Venoms Palace?" They cultivated in the universe creation diagram all year round and had hundreds of Tao sovereigns around them. Naturally, they did not take the Five Venoms Palace seriously. However, those Tao sovereigns were of no help at all. To Su Zimo, he could only go against the Five Venoms Palace if he improved his cultivation realm and released those Tao sovereigns. During this period, it was not appropriate to clash with the Five Venoms Palace. This is only a temporary measure. Su Zimo said indifferently, "Everyone, just follow my orders." The few supreme heavenly venerables were still indignant and looked at Yang Mo instinctively. After all, Yang Mo was a supreme heavenly venerable in the universe creation diagram and had great prestige among the heavenly venerables. Understood. Although he was unhappy, Yang Mo could not say anything. After all, Supreme Heavenly Venerable Lin Meng had warned them not to disobey Su Zimo's orders in the universe creation diagram. Yang Mo and the other heavenly venerables stood up and left. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief. At least in the future, he could cultivate in peace. End of chapter. Chapter 3279. Outside Wansho Ridge. The various Empyreans all left, some still feeling indignant, feeling discontent in their hearts. "Senior Brother Yang, are we really going to follow the Palace Lord's orders and stop the expansion?" The person who spoke was also a supreme celestial venerable named Li Hun. In the universe fortune diagram, the few of them were as close as real brothers and were bosom buddies. Among them, Yang Mo was the leader. Five Venoms Temple has indeed gone too far. The person who spoke was a beautiful woman named Kai Wei, who was also a supreme Empyrean. Kai Wei said, "However, what the Asgard Lord said makes sense. If a conflict were to erupt with the Five Venoms Palace because of this, with our current strength, we would not be able to withstand it." Li Hun said angrily, "I can't take this lying down. Palace Lord, aren't you a little too cowardly? I'm not convinced that you're serving him as your master. He's just relying on Qinglian's bloodline to gain the recognition of the universe fortune diagram. Apart from that, in terms of cultivation, battle prowess, and prestige, how can he compare to Senior Brother Yang?" Li Hun. Yang Mo scolded and shook his head, "Don't ever say such words again." Although he said that, in his heart he didn't really approve of this master. Yang Mo said, "The Palatial Lord is most likely thinking of compromising temporarily. When his essence spirit realm advances further and he steps into the Tao manipulation realm, he will release Master and the others before making arrangements. If we wait for him to improve his cultivation, how long would we have to wait?" Li Hun curled his lips and said, "I estimate that Senior Brother Yang won't be able to make any breakthroughs even after he reaches the Tao manipulation realm." Yang Mo faintly smiled and looked into the distance. His gaze was firm as he slowly said, "No matter which one of us is able to take another step forward, we will be able to rewrite the fate of the Primal Chaos Palace." When Su Zimo returned to the cave abode, he did not cultivate immediately. Instead, he returned to the universe fortune diagram. He still had many questions about the universe fortune diagram. Upon sensing Su Zimo's arrival, Autark Lin Meng and the others appeared one after another. "How much do you know about the turmoil in the vast thousand world back then?" As Su Zimo's cultivation base continued to rise, he discovered that the origins of many things were related to the great upheaval more than 6 billion years ago. The destruction of the primal chaos Qinglian, the destruction of the primal chaos sacred land, the fall of the demonic emperor and the others into the middle world, and the arrival of the celestial quartz masters to seal the middle world. We don't know the exact reason. Supreme Lin Meng said, "That great upheaval affected the saints of the great thousand realms, the 8 great sacred grounds, and all living beings in the world. Even we didn't have the qualifications to participate in it directly. We were only affected by it. Even Tao masters did not know the reason. 8 great holy lands?" Su Zimo's heart stirred, and he asked, "Apart from the primal chaos sacred land, what are the other 7 sacred lands?" 6 billion years ago, the Heaven Punishment Sacred Land was located in the east, the Ancestral Fire Sacred Land in the south, the Void Sacred Land in the west, and the Yin-Yang Sacred Land in the north. The Space-Time Sacred Land in the northeast, the Life Sacred Land in the southwest, and the Reincarnation Sacred Land in the northwest. Su Zimo nodded. Including the Primal Chaos Sacred Land in the southeast, there were 8 sacred lands. Supreme Lin Meng continued, however, because of that great upheaval, the Life Sacred Land and the Reincarnation Sacred Land suffered heavy losses in addition to the Primal Chaos Sacred Land. They should have been destroyed as well. A single upheaval had caused the destruction of 3 sacred lands in the Great Thousand Realms. It seemed that the demonic emperor and the others were most likely related to the other 2 sacred lands that had been destroyed. The black-robed man in the Blood Sea ruins might even be one of them. 6 paths of reincarnation. Su Zimo's mind suddenly flashed with the image of the 6 paths of abyss that he had seen in the Nether Hell. It seemed to be able to devour everything. The Reincarnation Sacred Lord. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he thought of a possibility. After pondering for a while, Su Zimo asked again, Sacred Lord, does it mean the master of a sacred land, or a realm above the Saint Realm? It's the abbreviation for the master of a sacred land, Supreme Lin Meng said. Supreme Lin Meng said, however, the 8 sacred lords are all above the Saint Realm. They are called Great Saints. When a living being and the Great Tao completely merge to become a saint, there is no distinction between them. This is the secret of the saint's eternal life. As long as the Great Tao exists, the saints will not die. Even if a saint's soul is destroyed, as long as the Great Tao still exists, the saint can still borrow the power of the Great Tao to come back to life and return to the peak. Su Zimo nodded inwardly. It was only at this moment that he truly understood the secret of eternal life. Turning into the Great Tao and becoming a saint would give one eternal life. What is a great saint? Su Zimo asked again. Supreme Lin Meng answered, it is said that a great saint has the power to destroy the Great Tao. When saints fight, they cannot completely kill each other. A saint's power is not enough to destroy the Great Tao. They can still come back to life after death. However, a great saint has the power to destroy the Great Tao. Su Zimo was enlightened. In other words, if a great saint made a move and wiped the Great Tao of the other party from the world, the other party would never be able to come back to life. A saint had eternal life and endless lifespan, but it did not mean that they were immortal. The 8 sacred masters of the past were all great saints and had the power to kill saints. They had already cultivated to this level and could be said to be at the peak of the 3 realms. Why had such an intense conflict erupted between them and caused such a huge upheaval that swept across the 3 realms? If he guessed correctly, the 9 sacred masters of the heavenly courts should have been saints from the other 5 sacred grounds. Their true purpose was to prevent the demon lord, the evil emperor, and the others from returning to the greater world. However, since the demon lord, the evil emperor, and the others had already fallen into the middle world, why did the 5 sacred masters not descend and completely wipe them out to prevent future trouble? There were still many questions regarding this matter. However, experts at Supreme Lin Meng's level could no longer come into contact with them. Why can't one enter the Saint Realm in the universe fortune diagram? Su Zimo asked. Supreme Lin Meng said, the universe fortune diagram is only a sacred artifact after all. It has its limitations. Even if there's a universe and fortune within it, it's at most a speck of dust in the 3 realms. There are 3,000 great Taos inside, but if you want to merge them into a complete great Tao, it's only possible to return to the greater world. Su Zimo fell silent, deep in thought. He'd already refined the universe fortune diagram and merged a wisp of chaos chi within it into his chaotic world. He had a feeling that the original purpose of the universe fortune diagram might not be just a weapon. Have you heard of the virtuous golden lotus and the black lotus of destruction? Su Zimo asked. Supreme Lin Meng and the others knew nothing about the chaos Qinglian, so they might not know about the virtuous golden lotus and the black lotus of destruction. However, these 2 lotuses were too important to Su Zimo. If he wanted to increase his cultivation level, the fastest way was to merge the 2 remaining lotuses. Improving his physical body and bloodline was only one of them. After merging with them, he could also complete his inherited memories. With these memories, he'd be able to comprehend the great Tao of chaos more easily. Supreme Lin Meng and the others shook their heads with blank expressions. Chapter 3280. Su Zimo came out of the universe creation diagram, returned to his cave abode, and began to cultivate in seclusion. In the middle world, after fusing with the red lotus of karmic fire, apart from the transformation of his physical body and bloodline, he also obtained a lotus platform of karmic fire and supplemented some of his inherited memories. These inherited memories would help him better comprehend the great Tao of chaos. Cultivation had no concept of time. 10,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Nether Blood Sea, holy ground. This place was quiet and deathly silent. There was no fighting, and it was the most suitable place for seclusion cultivation. For Wu Dao's main body, there was not even a person to talk to. The black-robed man sat by the blood sea all year round, thinking about something, as if he was already used to it. However, occasionally, the black-robed man would turn his head and stare at him. That gaze was a little strange and indescribable. Wu Dao's main body had seen the black-robed man's gaze more than once. There was no hostility, let alone killing intent. After staring at him for a long time, the black-robed man's face would even show a seemingly warm smile. However, this warm smile appeared on that pale face, and it was extremely strange. There were several times when Wu Dao's main body felt goosebumps all over from being stared at, and he could not help but ask a few questions. The black-robed man seemed to come back to his senses, and the smile on his face suddenly disappeared. He turned his back expressionlessly and ignored him. In such boring years, Wu Dao's main body's cultivation realm continued to increase. Now, he had cultivated to the perfected Tao comprehension realm. This speed not only surpassed other living beings, but also far surpassed Qinglian's main body. The main reason was because he was the one who created Wu Dao. No one knew Wu Dao better than him. To him, comprehending Wu Dao did not require too much effort. Even if he stepped into the Dao manipulation realm in the future, his realm would also increase rapidly. That was because no one was more familiar with how to control Wu Dao and control Wu Dao than him. The realm of the Yuanwu world was also increasing at the same time, reaching the perfected Dao comprehension realm. Compared to the raging flames in the martial arts universe, the Yuanwu world was quiet and empty. Only the traces of Wu Dao filled the entire world. Ever since Qinglian's true body had ascended, the connection between the two true bodies had not been severed. However, Wu Dao's original body was still unable to leave the sea of blood. This also meant that no matter what realm he cultivated to, he could not go to the great wide world to help Qinglian's real body. Moreover, Wu Dao's original body's cultivation path had already encountered a huge hidden danger. He cultivated two Wu Dao worlds. The martial refining universe was something that had evolved from the normal cultivation of the three realms. The other Yuanwu world was an otherworldly world created by the Divergent after the metamorphosis of his Taoist body. As the two worlds continued to expand, their powers grew stronger and stronger, and so did the repulsion. When he first stepped into the Emperor realm, the two worlds could still fuse. However, after cultivating to the Tao comprehending realm, Su Zimo had tried to fuse the two worlds, but it didn't last long before he was forced to separate them. When he stepped into the Tao controlling realm, the repulsion would only grow stronger. After the Tao controlling realm was the Saint realm. Only by fusing the Tao could one become a saint. When ordinary living beings cultivated to this stage, their physical body, essence spirit, and great Tao would be fused together. And the physical body of Wu Dao's original body was the Yuanwu world. His Tao integration was actually the fusion of the two worlds. However, the fusion of the two worlds was already extremely difficult. After cultivating to the perfected Tao controlling realm, forcefully fusing them would only result in an even more intense backlash. It was even possible for one to die from Tao disintegration. If this problem was not solved, Wu Dao's original body would never be able to become a saint. His existence wasn't divergent to begin with. In terms of cultivation, no one could guide him. He could only rely on himself to deduce. Myriad Beast Ridge. Su Zimo woke up from seclusion. After 10,000 years, he had already cultivated to the peak of the lesser mastery of the Tao comprehending realm. However, he was still unable to break through the bottleneck. And this was under the circumstances that he had the inheritance memories of Qinglian and the Red Lotus of Hellfire. Without these inheritance memories, it would be difficult for him to cultivate to this level even if he cultivated for 100,000 or even 1,000,000 years. At this moment, the sound of clothes fluttering could be heard from outside the cave abode. Su Zimo's divine consciousness moved. He saw Su Rui, Chen Qianhe, and Meng Shi rushing over with panicked expressions. It seemed that something big had happened. 10,000 years had passed, but Su Rui and the other two's realms had not changed much. After all, 10,000 years was too short for supremacies with a lifespan of 100 million years. What's wrong? Su Zimo left the cave abode and went out to welcome them. Palace Master. Seeing Su Zimo appear, even with Su Rui's calm temperament, he could not hide the fear on his face. He said in a low voice, "Something happened." "Don't panic. Speak slowly." Su Zimo said in a low voice. "It's the Five Venoms Palace." Su Rui said these 3 words the moment he opened his mouth. Su Zimo raised his brows. According to his arrangements, the Primal Chaos Palace would remain dormant and retract its sharpness. It should not be noticed by the Five Venoms Temple so quickly. "How did we offend the Five Venoms Palace?" Su Zimo asked. Su Rui hesitated and wanted to say something. At the side, Meng Shi could not help but grumble, "It's all Yang Mo's fault." Chen Qianhe sighed gently. "Sigh. It's also because the Five Venoms Palace went overboard that Tao Venerate Yang Mo had to retaliate." "Humph," Meng Shi said in annoyance. "If they hadn't taken down the 1,000 Spider Forest and Poison Scorpion Ridge privately, they wouldn't have offended the Five Venoms Palace." When he heard that, Su Zimo's expression changed slightly and he interrupted, "Tao Venerate Yang Mo?" Su Rui said, "Palace Master, you're in seclusion all year round and don't know. Heavenly Venerate Yang Mo broke through to the Tao manipulation realm more than 100 years ago and became a Tao Venerate." Meng Shi sneered, "He's getting cocky just because he's a Tao Venerate and wants to go against the Five Venoms Palace. The Five Venoms Palace has occupied the Canopy Gai province for so many years. What sort of foundation do they have? How can a Tao Venerate like him contend against them?" "You can't say that." Chen Qianhe said, "Tao Venerate Yang Mo only ended up like this because he stood up for the Chaos Palace." Su Zimo had a rough idea of what was going on after hearing that. "Su Rui, tell me everything from the beginning to the end," Su Zimo said as he walked towards the Chaos Hall. Su Rui nodded and followed him. Actually, over the years, every time the Five Venoms Palace messengers came to collect the Dawn Stones, some of the people brought by the Palace Master were indeed dissatisfied. As time passed, this dissatisfaction accumulated. More than 100 years ago, the Heavenly Venerate Yang Mo became a Tao Venerate. This was supposed to be a good thing, but Li Hun and the other Taoists took the opportunity to take over the 1,000 Spider Forest and Poison Scorpion Ridge. The 1,000 Spider Forest and Poison Scorpion Ridge are related to the Five Venoms Palace and attracted their attention. A few days ago, the Five Venoms Palace sent messengers over and took the opportunity to make trouble. They suddenly demanded that the Chaos Palace hand over 90% of the Dawn Stones. Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and asked with a frown, 90%? End of chapter. Chapter 3281. Yes. Su Rui chuckled bitterly. Fellow Taoist Li Hun and the others have been tolerating Five Venoms Palace for so many years and were furious when they heard about this. As such, they clashed with Five Venoms Palace. Tao Venerate Yang Mo even attacked and severely injured the emissary of Five Venoms Palace. Chen Qianhe said, "Actually, Tao Venerate Yang Mo had already held back and did not harm the lives of the people of Five Venoms Palace. However, Five Venoms Palace had dominated Kanagai State for many years and their position was unshakable. Even if the emissary was not killed, this was equivalent to challenging the authority of Five Venoms Palace. The emissary of Five Venoms Palace came to ask Chaos Palace to hand over 90% of the origin stones. Now that the people of Five Venoms Palace were severely injured, there was no way Five Venoms Palace would let this go. A Dao Venerate of Five Venoms Palace appeared? Su Zimo asked. Su Rui nodded. A young master of Five Venoms Palace, Supreme Heavenly Venerate Zhu Ling, came with 2 Dao Venerates. Dao Venerate Yang Imo was defeated, sigh. Is he still alive? Su Zimo asked again. He's still alive. Su Rui shook his head with a pained expression. But he's better off dead. Chen Chen has said, Dao Venerate Yang Imo had just entered the Dao manipulation realm and might not be able to unleash his strongest combat strength. Coupled with the fact that the Dao Venerate opposite him controlled the great Dao of poison, Dao Venerate Yang Imo was accidentally poisoned. A mere Dao Venerate defeated Yang Imo. On second thought, Su Zimo was not surprised. After all, Supreme Lin Meng and the others had cultivated in the vast 1,000 domains and experienced battles. As for Yang Imo and the others, they had been cultivating in the Qingquan creation diagram and sparred with one another. They lacked experience in life and death battles. They would definitely be at a disadvantage against a true expert. Su Rui said, Young Master Zhu Ling has already brought Yang Imo and the others to the Chaos Hall. He's not here with good intentions and is most likely here to denounce the Palace Master. Su Zimo replied casually. Send the order immediately to gather all the cultivators of Chaos Palace here. Palace Master, what are you doing? Mengshe couldn't help but say, even if all of us in the Chaos Palace worked together, we still wouldn't be able to withstand the power of the Dao Master. Palace Master, you didn't see it. Only Dao Venerate Yang Imo lasted a few more rounds against the Dao Venerate from the Five Venoms Palace. Li Hun, Kai Wei, and the other Supremes were subdued by the Dao Venerate from the Five Venoms Palace in one move. There's no need to say more. Just do as you're told. Su Zimo didn't explain and just said a few words. Su Rui and the other 2 exchanged a glance and left without any hesitation. Su Zimo went straight to the Chaos Hall. Many people had already gathered in the main hall. Most of them were heavenly venerables that he had brought out from the universe creation diagram. The Empyreans all had angry looks on their faces, but they didn't dare to speak out. They were suppressing themselves with all their might. Other than these people, there was another person sitting on the main seat in the main hall. This person was young and wore vermilion robes. He had a frivolous expression and was sipping hot tea leisurely. His fingernails shone with brilliant colors. It was clear that they were poisonous. If he wasn't wrong, this should be the young master of Five Venoms Palace, Supreme Heavenly Venerate Zhu Ling. Behind this person stood 2 elders with expressionless faces. Both of them were Dao Venerates at lesser mastery of the Dao manipulation realm. The one on the left wore black robes with wide sleeves that were folded in front of him, hiding his hands within. The one on the right wore red robes that were woven with dense spiderwebs. He stood with his hands behind his back. He should be from the same clan as Supreme Heavenly Venerate Zhu Ling. There were 7 people lying in front of the 3 of them, all of whom had come from the universe fortune diagram. Among them were Dao Venerate Yang Imo, Li Hun and Kai Wei. At that moment, the 7 of them had purplish faces and were twitching all over. White foam was spat out of their mouths and their eyes were bloodshot. It was clear that they were in immense pain. Let me die. Kill me. The other 4 could no longer hold it in and roared continuously. Yang Imo and the other 2 could only endure it as well, and groans could be heard from the depths of their throats. Young Master Zhu Ling looked down at everything with a smirk. He was enjoying it. The more these people were in pain, the happier he was. Master. When they saw Su Zimo step into the hall, everyone from Chaos Palace shouted with grief and indignation. Su Zimo nodded. When Yang Imo and the other 2 heard the word, Master, they turned around with difficulty and glanced at Su Zimo before lowering their heads again. Young Master Zhu Ling did not stand up and clapped with a smile. So, this is the Chaos Palace Master. I've heard a lot about you. Palace Master Su, you don't mind me sitting in your seat, right? Young Master Zhu Ling asked with a smile. Su Zimo ignored him and arrived in the hall. Pointing to Yang Mo and the others, he asked indifferently, "What do you say about this?" "Fufu." Young Master Zhu Ling chuckled. "Seems like you want to talk to me, Palace Master Su? No problem, I hate fighting and killing the most. I spared their lives because I wanted to give Chaos Palace a chance." In reality, Yang Mo and the others were currently poisoned and were enduring the pain of being bitten by thousands of spiders. It was truly a fate worse than death. Young Master Zhu Ling said, "I'm sure you know the reason for this matter, Palace Master Su. Your subordinates are truly audacious and unforgivable for injuring people of Five Venoms Palace. You weren't the one who instigated this, right?" Young Master Zhu Ling changed the topic and revealed his true intentions. His killing intent surged, and he was ready to strike as long as Su Zimo's reply was wrong. "It has nothing to do with you, Master." At this moment, Yang Mo clenched his teeth and endured the pain. From between his teeth, he spat out one word at a time, "This is my own doing. I, Yang Mo, will take responsibility for my own actions. Don't implicate others." Young Master Zhu Ling said coldly, "You think we won't be implicated just because you say so? Let me tell you, even if a dog of Five Venoms Palace is injured by you, the people of Chaos Palace will have to pay with their lives. Since you injured 18 people of Five Venoms Palace, Chaos Palace will have to pay with the lives of 1,800 heavenly venerables. Naturally, Five Venoms Palace had to kill to establish their dominance after being provoked as such. Furthermore, they were killing a bunch of weaklings." Yang Mo was furious and his expression changed continuously as he spat out a mouthful of blood and was in even more pain. After becoming a Dao Venerable, he wanted to make use of this opportunity to establish his authority in Chaos Palace. However, he did not expect that he would implicate the others of Chaos Palace instead. Li Hun and the others were filled with regret as well. If not for the fact that they had no choice, they would have killed themselves on the spot. Su Zimo could roughly guess their thoughts and ignored them. Letting them suffer some pain was also a form of punishment for them. Everyone from Chaos Palace gripped their fists secretly. Although they were furious, they could not say anything. They knew that the current Chaos Palace could not go against Five Venoms Palace and they could only endure any humiliation. At that moment, many cultivators of Chaos Palace, Su Rei and the others had rushed over from various places and were silent as they watched everything unfold in the main hall. Chaos Palace had just started to improve and they did not expect to suffer such a heavy blow. The lives of 1,800 heavenly venerables were equivalent to crippling half of Chaos Palace. Furthermore, no one knew which heavenly venerables the butcher's knife of Five Venoms Palace would land on. Everyone in the main hall was in danger. Yang Mo and the others were indeed in the wrong. Suddenly, Su Zimo spoke indifferently, "Chaos Palace will punish them for their mistakes." Since when did outsiders interfere? As soon as he finished speaking, the hall became completely silent. End of chapter. Chapter 3282. Not to mention young Master Zhu Ling of Five Venoms Palace, even the people of Chaos Palace, including Yang Mo and the rest who were suffering, could not believe that those words came out of Su Zimo's mouth. Ever since they came out of the universe creation diagram, they had never seen Su Zimo make a move. The impression that this master gave everyone was that he was weak, benevolent, and timid. Previously, he chose to compromise and give in the face of Five Venoms Palace's oppression. But now, the young master of Five Venoms Palace had arrived with 2 Dao Venerables and was about to be killed. Yet this master said such tough words. Their master was only a heavenly venerable at the initial Dao comprehension realm. How much courage and guts did it take for him to say those words to the young master of Five Venoms Palace and 2 Dao Venerables? Not to mention a heavenly venerable, even Dao Venerable Yang Mo was extremely wary when he saw young Master Zhu Ling bringing 2 Dao Venerables and held back when he spoke. Furthermore, Su Zimo's words were clearly meant to protect Yang Mo and the rest. Yang Mo and the rest felt even more guilty when they thought about how they had caused trouble for Chaos Palace because of their selfishness and rashness. "Master!" Yang Mo endured the pain and said sorrowfully, "Our sins are unforgivable. Even death by 1,000 cuts won't be enough. Why you can't be impulsive and implicate yourself? With that, Yang Emo felt ashamed and regretful. If not for their impulsiveness, how would they be in such a predicament today? The lives of 1,800 heavenly venerables in Chaos Palace were all on their heads. Master, Chaos Palace still needs you. Supreme Heavenly Venerate Kaiwei looked at Su Zimo and said intermittently as tears rolled down her cheeks. As long as Su Zimo was still alive and his essence spirit cultivated to the Tao manipulation realm, he could naturally avenge them by releasing the Tao venerables in the universe creation diagram. However, they could not say that in public and could only remind Su Zimo to protect himself. Interesting. Young Master Zhu Ling was stunned for a long time before he reacted. He never would have thought that an Empyrean would dare to say this sort of thing to him. He could not help clapping his hands and laughing loudly as he asked, "Our Five Poisons Temple has interfered. What does Palace Master Su want?" I'm sorry." The moment the word, "that," was uttered, Su Zimo had already arrived before young Master Zhu Ling in a flash. His speed was shocking and he arrived almost instantly. "You're courting death." Young Master Zhu Ling's eyes shone brightly as he raised his hand to slap Su Zimo. A spiderweb-like Tao seal condensed in his palm. It was colorful and clearly contained poison. This change left everyone in the Primal Chaos Palace shocked. They did not think that Su Zimo was actually so decisive, charging straight for the Five Venoms Temple's young lord. "It's over." Yang Emo sighed in his heart. It was us who caused Master's death. Not to mention the two Tao Masters standing beside young Master Zhu Ling. Even young Master Zhu Ling himself was a supreme celestial master of the perfected Tao comprehending realm and could kill Su Zimo. Naturally, no one present could guess Su Zimo's intentions. Su Zimo's expression did not change in the face of young Master Zhu Ling's attack. When he approached, he suddenly propped up a world and clenched his fists, slashing down at the two Tao lords beside young Master Zhu Ling. That was an extremely strange action. Not only did he ignore young Master Zhu Ling's killing move, Su Zimo did not have any weapon in his hands either. If he slashed down like that, he would only slash at the air. Was the palatial master bent on seeking death? Everyone was stunned for a moment. The two Tao masters scoffed at Su Zimo's attack and did not care at all. Not to mention that Su Zimo had nothing in his hands and could not injure them. Even if he had a weapon, it would be too late. That was because young Master Zhu Ling was clearly a step faster. A single step was enough to determine life and death. The two Tao Masters could almost see young Master Zhu Ling's Tao seal landing on Su Zimo's chest and sending him flying. All of a sudden, in the chaos world, two sword lights tore through the chaos and landed in Su Zimo's empty hands, matching perfectly. Su Zimo wielded both swords and slashed down. The Infinite Pain and Netherworld swords were born. The two Tao Masters' expressions changed. Those two swords, psst, what a strong edge. What a strong killing intent. Before the Infinite Pain swords landed, the black-robed old man on the left felt a sharp pain in his scalp as though it was about to be ripped apart. The red-robed old man on the right was enveloped by the killing intent of the Netherworld sword and felt as though he had fallen into ice. His body stiffened and his reaction was slower by half. It was no wonder that the two of them were so conceited and unguarded. The difference in cultivation realm between them was truly too great. It was an entire major realm. Furthermore, the two Tao Masters had not expected that a heavenly venerate would target them. How dare that lad? Until this moment, the two of them could not believe what was happening before them. Furthermore, ordinary heavenly venerate spirit treasures could not hurt them. However, the moment the Infinite Pain and Netherworld swords appeared, the two of them were shocked. At their cultivation realm, they could naturally sense the terror of the Infinite Pain and Netherworld swords. As for young Master Zhu Ling, after the Infinite Pain and Netherworld swords appeared, he was so scared that he shuddered and his consciousness froze momentarily. As long as one sword stabs me, how can I still be alive? That thought flashed through young Master Zhu Ling's mind. However, he was enraged before long. This person is truly despicable to look down on me. At that thought, young Master Zhu Ling propped up a world and his attacks became even more ferocious. A colorful spiderweb Dao seal smashed toward Su Zimo's chest. Rumble. Boom. 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 A rumbling sound echoed from Su Zimo's body. It was even more turbulent than the tides and swept in all directions like a tsunami. An incomparably tyrannical blood qi spewed out, and the vast power almost flipped young Master Zhu Ling over. His Dao seal was about to land on Su Zimo's chest, but he could not press it down no matter what. The next moment, a jade-green lotus soared into the skies and shone brightly. There was a thin layer of flames burning on the surface of the jade-green lotus. It was the red lotus karmic fire. Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon burst forth. Young Master Zhu Ling's Dao seal caused a world to collapse instantly. At the same time, the netherworld sword slashed down. The red-robed old man could not dodge in time and could only tilt his head instinctively. At the same time, he controlled the Dao in his palms and formed spiderwebs that enveloped the netherworld sword. Thump, thump, thump. Those spiderwebs could not defend against the sharpness of the netherworld sword and were all severed. However, this slight delay allowed the red-robed old man to seize the opportunity to retreat. Exclamation point! A blood light appeared. The netherworld sword's blade cut through the red-robed old man's shoulder, leaving behind a faint wound. An injury as such did not affect a Dao Venerate expert and could be healed in the blink of an eye. Even though he was caught off guard and lost the initiative, the Dao Venerate expert was still able to avoid his vitals and only suffered a slight scratch. Even Su Zimo praised internally when he saw that. As expected of a Dao Venerate. The red-robed old man escaped with his life, but he still had lingering fears. "How dare you?" He glared at Su Zimo with a ferocious gaze and hollered. Just as he was about to counterattack, his voice stopped abruptly. The red-robed old man's expression changed starkly as his eyes widened with endless fear. His life force was dissipating rapidly and his eyes dimmed. The next moment, the red-robed old man fell limply to the ground. His essence spirit was destroyed and he was dead. Chapter 3283. The change happened so quickly that it happened in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the infinite pain sword slashed down as well. However, compared to the red-robed old man, the black-robed old man was even more ferocious and had no intention of dodging at all. His black robes that were initially folded together suddenly shattered and more than 1,000 palms extended from within, piercing towards Su Zimo. Rather than palms, it was more like 1,000 sharp pitch-black daggers. The true form of the black-robed old man was a 1,000-legged centipede, and every single leg of his contained lethal poison. The 1,000 legs struck with a stench. The poisonous gas on them alone was enough to poison heavenly venerates. Thankfully, Su Zimo and Qinglian had strong blood qi and the obstruction of their phenomenons. That was why they were able to isolate the poisonous gas. In reality, the reason why Su Zimo released his blood qi and bloodline phenomenon was not to deal with young Master Zhu Ling. His main purpose was to release his full strength. Against Dao Venerates, he had no chance at all if he did not use his full strength. Furthermore, the protection of his bloodline phenomenon could defend against the counterattack of the two Dao Venerates as well. However, no matter how strong his blood qi was or how strong his bloodline phenomenon was, it was impossible for him to completely neutralize the black-robed old man's 1,000 legs. Although the attack seemed simple without any fancy moves, the 1,000 legs made use of the power of the great Dao to return to basics and break through Su Zimo's blood qi. In fact, even Qinglian's phenomenon was only able to block it slightly. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness moved and a ball of yellow sand appeared around him. It was the 9 heavens breath soil. Even so, it could not defend against the black-robed old man's attack. Instantly, countless bloody holes appeared on Su Zimo's body. As for Su Zimo, a fiery red lotus platform flew out from his glabella and covered his face. After the bloodline phenomenon and 9 heavens breath soil's obstruction, the 1,000-leg strength was reduced by more than half and was blocked by the karmic fire red lotus. Although the 1,000 legs penetrated his body, they did not injure his vitals. At the same time, the infinite pain sword slashed down from the black-robed old man's head. Exclamation point! Blood gushed out. The Tao Venerate was sliced into two by the infinite pain sword. Young Master Zhuling was shocked when he saw this. His spirit treasure was already of the highest level, but it was still difficult for it to hurt the body of a Tao Master, let alone split him in half. Since the black-robed old man dared to counterattack, he had naturally thought of a way out. Just as the Avicii sword was about to strike his head, his primordial spirit had already left his body. With just a thought, he could reconstruct his physical body. The black-robed elder was lucky. If not for his essence soul escaping in advance, even if his essence soul was not destroyed by the Avicii sword, his essence soul would have been devoured by the Avicii hell within the sword. The black-robed old man wanted to use his bloodline to reconstruct his body. However, around the Avicii sword, an eerie hell vaguely appeared, suppressing his corpse and all of his chi and blood. In a short period of time, he was actually unable to extract the bloodline. This caused the black-robed old man to panic. Su Zimo turned the Avicii sword around and slashed at the black-robed elder's primordial spirit. The sword chi was eerie, and the bottomless and terrifying hell actually shrouded over. The netherworld sword slashed in his direction as well. The two swords arrived together, wanting to encircle the black-robed old man's essence soul. Since Su Zimo had already decided to attack, there was no way he could let the other party escape. When the black-robed old man saw how the red-robed old man died after being grazed by the red sword, he naturally knew how terrifying the sword was. Against the encirclement of the two swords, he was left with an essence soul and could not resist at all. When the black-robed old man saw that the situation was bad, he did not have time to reconstruct his body and turned to flee with his essence soul. Boom! However, a red beam of light descended. The karmic fire lotus platform had descended and struck the black-robed old man's essence soul heavily. Bang! As expected of a Tao Lord's essence soul, it did not dissipate after being struck by the karmic fire lotus platform. Instead, it merely shuddered, felt dizzy and blacked out. Su Zimo controlled the karmic fire lotus platform with his spirit consciousness and activated a secret skill according to his inherited memories. The karmic fire lotus platform suddenly bloomed and layers of fiery red petals grew around it, trapping the black-robed old man's essence soul within, forming an impenetrable prison. No matter how hard the black-robed old man's essence soul tried to break free, it could not escape. At the same time, the many lotus holes on the lotus platform spewed out scarlet flames. There was a lotus seed in each of the flames. In an instant, the karmic fire within the lotus platform burned the black-robed old man's essence soul. Ah! The black-robed old man let out a shrill cry. Within a few breaths, his essence soul was riddled with holes by the lotus seeds and his body was burned to ashes by the karmic fire. The chaos hall was terrifyingly silent. Everyone's eyes were wide open as they held their breaths. Their faces were filled with shock as they watched this scene, unable to utter a single word. Even Yang Mo, Li Hun and the others seemed to have forgotten the pain they were in. They watched the scene in disbelief and their minds went blank. The two Tao Masters had been killed by the Lord in front of the crowd. They felt suffocated. Throughout the entire process, Su Zimo's methods, strength, calmness, were too different from the weak and scholarly image they had in mind. How could he be someone who was afraid of the smallest thing? There was simply no one more daring and decisive than him. Most of the Chaos Palace cultivators had never seen Su Zimo in action before. In their eyes, the Chaos Palace master was like a gentle and refined scholar. Although they could not see the might of a palace master, he was benevolent and was not bad. It was only today that everyone truly witnessed how terrifying Su Zimo was. He was like a ferocious tiger that tore apart the scholar's skin and broke out of his body. Young Master Zhuling's world shattered. His attacks were useless. Looking at the scene in front of him, he was scared silly. When Su Zimo retracted his sword and looked at him, he shuddered and snapped back to his senses. "Why, you're poisoned. You won't survive either," young Master Zhuling said with a trembling voice. Su Zimo had just killed two Tao Masters and used almost all his trump cards. Furthermore, he was not unscathed. His body was pierced by the black-robed old man's thousands of feet and black blood was still flowing out. Although the poison could injure others, it could not threaten Qinglian's body. What are you trying to do? You can't kill me. I'm the young master of 5 Venoms Palace. If you dare to kill me, you can forget about leaving Canopy Continent alive. Young Master Zhu Ling pretended to be calm and hollered. Su Zimo merely looked at him calmly without saying anything. When he saw that Su Zimo was unmoved, young Master Zhu Ling was even more afraid and his tone softened as he begged, "Why let me go? I'll return to 5 Venoms Palace to seek an antidote for you." "Palace Master Su, please show mercy and give me a chance," Su Zimo replied indifferently. "I've already given you a chance." Stunned for a moment, young Master Zhu Ling shook his head hurriedly. No. Palace Master Su, you've remembered wrongly. You haven't given me a chance yet." Su Zimo replied expressionlessly, "When I entered, I asked you what you wanted to say." Young Master Zhu Ling recalled that Su Zimo had indeed said that. Was Su Zimo not begging him to let Chaos Palace off but to give them a chance to live? Unfortunately, you missed it. In front of young Master Zhu Ling's shocked and lost gaze, Su Zimo said softly and slapped the young master's head, shattering the latter's essence spirit. End of chapter. Chapter 3284. This battle started suddenly, and it ended very quickly as well. Until now, there were still many people in Chaos Palace who had yet to recover from their shock. We've truly gotten ourselves into big trouble. Meng Shi's heart thumped wildly as he muttered. Killing 2 Dao Venerables and a young master of 5 Venoms Palace was equivalent to completely severing ties with 5 Venoms Palace, and there was no turning back. Everyone in Chaos Palace would probably have to flee for their lives. Su Zimo turned to everyone from Chaos Palace and declared, 5 Venoms Palace will definitely not let today's battle rest. If you're willing to follow me, you can enter this diagram to avoid disaster. As he spoke, he brought out the universe creation diagram and spread it out, hovering above the myriad beast ridge. Under Su Zimo's control, the universe creation diagram emitted a faint glow. As long as everyone from Chaos Palace entered the range of the faint glow, they would be pulled in by the universe creation diagram. When Su Rue heard that, his heart skipped a beat as he murmured, "So, the Palace Master had this plan long ago when he asked us to gather everyone here." Actually, if young Master Zhu Ling and the others had not gone overboard and left after poisoning Yang Mo and the others, Su Zimo would not have fallen out with them. After all, right now, what he wanted the most was to cultivate quietly and raise his cultivation as soon as possible. The moment he became enemies with 5 Venoms Palace, he could only escape. It was still unknown if he could avoid the pursuit of 5 Venoms Palace. At the very least, he would not be able to cultivate in seclusion for the time being. However, when he arrived at the Chaos Palace, 5 Venoms Palace was overbearing and wanted the 1,800 heavenly venerables of Chaos Palace to be buried with them. That was why Su Zimo wanted to kill them. Many heavenly venerables of Chaos Palace left the universe creation diagram and were unwilling to return. However, now that Chaos Palace was in danger, everyone knew that it would be difficult to escape the pursuit of 5 Venoms Palace if they stayed in Canopy Gai Province. After Su Zimo said that, many heavenly venerables stood up and flew towards the universe creation diagram. Before long, all the cultivators of Chaos Palace were sucked into the universe creation diagram. Su Zimo also led Yang Mo and the others into the universe creation diagram. The sudden appearance of so many people in the universe creation diagram had long alarmed Supreme Lin Meng and the others as they hurried forward to ask about the reason. After learning about what happened in Chaos Palace, the Dao Venerables were enraged. Supreme Lin Meng's gaze was even colder. He looked at Yang Mo and the others and said in a deep voice, "You disobeyed my master's orders and almost caused an irreversible disaster." After he finished saying those words, utmost exalted Lin Meng raised his hand and planned to kill Yang Mo and the others as a warning to others. Yang Mo and the others also knew that they were guilty. They lowered their heads deeply and didn't beg for mercy. Their bodies were poisoned and they were enduring the pain of being bitten by tens of thousands of spiders. To them, death was a form of relief. Moreover, they were too ashamed to face the other cultivators. We know our mistake. Yang Emo replied, "We were selfish and did not listen to orders. We caused a huge disaster and implicated Chaos Palace and our master. We deserve to die." Peach Su Zimo said, "That's only one of your sins." Yang Emo and the others were slightly stunned and confused. Su Zimo continued, "Since you guys chose to go against 5 Venom's palace and provoked a strong enemy, you guys returned in defeat and damaged the prestige of Chaos Palace. That's the second sin." Yang Emo chuckled bitterly. He wanted to suppress the other party, but he couldn't win at all. Su Zimo continued, "Since you guys are weaker, you'll be punished to enter seclusion in the universe creation diagram for 10,000 years to temper your combat techniques. In the future, you'll make up for your sins with merits." When they heard that, Yang Emo and the others shuddered and looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. The meaning of their master's words, the punishment of going into seclusion for 10,000 years, was nothing to them. At their cultivation realm, it was common for them to enter seclusion for 100,000 or even 1,000,000 years. 10,000 years was just a blink of an eye. "Master?" Supreme Lin Meng was still in disbelief and asked tentatively. Su Zimo nodded and said, "Supreme Lin Meng, please remove the poison from their bodies." With his bloodline, he could remove the poison from Yang Emo and the others. However, it would take a lot of time. After all, the poison was left behind by a Dao venerable expert. With Supreme Lin Meng present, removing the poison left behind by a Dao venerable was naturally easy. It was only now that Yang Emo and the others confirmed that Su Zimo did not intend to kill them. "Why aren't you thanking him?" Supreme Lin Meng stepped forward and reprimanded. "Thank you, Master." Yang Emo and the others felt as though they had walked through the gates of hell and were reborn. Their eyes reddened as they looked at Su Zimo with gratitude. To be fair, it would be normal for Su Zimo to kill them to establish his dominance. After all, they were the ones who committed a grave mistake first. However, not only did Su Zimo kill young Master Zhu Ling and the 2 Dao venerables of 5 Poisons Palace, he did not pursue their crimes either. "Master, I was truly a bastard in the past. I even secretly said bad things about you." Li Hun was a burly man to begin with. However, at this moment, he burst into tears and slapped himself on the mouth with his swollen palm. Previously, the few of them chose to follow Su Zimo to the Great Thousand Worlds. However, in their hearts, they were more or less dissatisfied with this unfamiliar master. It was only at this moment that everyone was truly loyal. When the others from Chaos Palace saw this, they were moved as well and cupped their fists, saying in unison, "Master is benevolent." They had just witnessed Su Zimo's decisiveness to kill. Now that they saw how magnanimous Su Zimo was towards his own people, they were touched. "Master," Supreme Being Lin Meng said in a deep voice, "since you've already fallen out with 5 Poisons Palace, it's not appropriate for you to appear. Why don't you cultivate in the universe creation diagram as well?" Of course, that was a solution as well. However, the universe creation diagram was a small 3 realms after all. If he wanted to better comprehend the great Tao of chaos and raise his cultivation, he had to return to the Great Thousand Worlds. The universe creation diagram could only be considered as his last resort. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo said, "I'll try to escape from this place first. If I can successfully escape the pursuit of 5 Poisons Palace, that would naturally be for the best." 5 Poisons Palace was only the largest faction in Kanagai Province. As long as he could escape from Kanagai Province, it would be equivalent to him escaping from most of the danger. Without further ado, Su Zimo left a few more instructions before leaving the universe creation diagram. Arriving above the 10,000 Beast Ridge, Su Zimo sighed when he caught sight of the lush and picturesque palaces around him. To think that he would be forced to flee after ascending to the Great Thousand Worlds for 10,000 years. Of course, compared to Tianhuang Mainland and the Middle Worlds, ascending to the Great Thousand Worlds was already considered smooth sailing and the current danger was nothing. At this cultivation realm, unless one cultivated the Great Tao of Disguise, there was not much point in changing one's appearance as one would be seen through with a single glance. Su Zimo used his spirit consciousness and created 3 clones with the help of the 3 Pure Ones Jade Booklet. They sped off in 4 different directions and disappeared above the 10,000 Beast Ridge in the blink of an eye. Chapter 3285. Canopy State, 5 Venoms Palace. As the most powerful force in Canopy State, 5 Venoms Palace had 5 Palace Lords. Sky Spider Palace Lord and Sky Centipede Palace Lord were both perfected Tao Manipulation Realm and were titled Supreme Tao Venerables. Sky Snake Palace Lord and Sky Scorpion Palace Lord were both perfected Tao Manipulation Realm and were titled Supreme Tao Venerables. The remaining Sky Toad Palace Lord was a Tao Venerate at Lesser Mastery of Tao Manipulation Realm. Young Master Zhu Ling was the son of Sky Spider Palace Lord. At this moment, not only were the 5 Palace Lords present in 5 Venoms Palace, but the dozens of Tao Manipulation Realm experts under them were also present. The atmosphere in the palace was extremely oppressive and murderous. News of the 10,000 Beasts Ridge had already spread. The 5 Palace Lords' faces were gloomy and cold. Among them, Sky Spider Palace Lord's beautiful face was filled with killing intent. She licked her scarlet lips and said faintly, "I'm surprised that someone dares to challenge 5 Venoms Palace in Canopy State." This time, not only did a young master die under Sky Spider Palace Lord, but there was also a Tao Venerate. The other Tao Venerate who died was under Sky Centipede Palace Lord. A Tao Venerate stood up and said in a deep voice, "I've already investigated. The killer is an ascender from 10,000 years ago and is in charge of Chaos Palace." It said that this person obtained a treasure map, which made Chaos Palace famous in recent years. Humph! Sky Centipede Palace Lord sneered. "A force that should have been destroyed long ago. Do you still want to rise from the ashes? If there's no explanation for this, 5 Venoms Palace will lose face," Sky Snake Palace Lord said. "Don't worry," Sky Scorpion Palace Lord said, "no matter how powerful he is, he won't be able to escape Canopy State." Sky Spider Palace Lord stood up and said slowly, "Pass down the order. Tell all the poisonous creatures in Canopy State to keep an eye on this person. Report any movements immediately. I want to capture this kid personally and let him suffer the pain of 5 Venoms. He'll wish he was dead." Sky Toad Palace Lord also stood up and said, "You will lead the team personally. There must be a Tao Venerate and a Supreme in each team. Since this kid can kill 2 Tao Venerates, he must have some tricks up his sleeve. Don't be careless." "Yes." Dozens of Tao Manipulation Realm powerhouses responded in unison and dispersed. The 5 Palace Lords also moved one after another, leaving the 5 Poisons Palace. Su Zimo continued to rush in a certain direction. In about half a day, the injuries on his body had already healed. As Qinglian's blood circulated, the poison in his body was completely removed. Under normal circumstances, with the cover of his 3 clones, there was a high chance that he could escape from the Canopy State. However, ever since he set out on his journey, he had a vague feeling that he was constantly being monitored. However, when he sent out his divine sense to investigate, he didn't gain anything. Could it be an illusion? Su Zimo frowned slightly. It was also possible that he was just being paranoid. At least for now, he hadn't sensed any danger. Suddenly, Su Zimo lost contact with one of his doppelgangers. He didn't even have time to see who the other party was through this clone before the connection between the two was cut off. So fast. Murmuring softly, Su Zimo did not stop and continued sprinting forward. Another 4 hours passed. He had lost contact with the second clone. After ascending to the Great Thousand World, the 3 Purity Jade books were not of much use to him. Even if he lost them, it would not be a pity. However, the fact that the 2 doppelgangers had been crippled in such a short period of time made Su Zimo feel a strong sense of crisis. Stillwater? Peach. Furthermore, along the way, the feeling of being watched did not disappear at all. It was as if a pair of eyes were everywhere. Even if Su Zimo changed direction at the last moment, there was nowhere to hide. Normally speaking, no matter how great the 5 Venoms Temple's influence was, it was also impossible to spread to every corner of the Canopy State. Now, it gave Su Zimo a feeling that 5 Venoms Temple spies were everywhere in the Canopy State. Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he stared at the colorful mushrooms that filled the entire mountain. If he looked carefully, he could see some tiny poisonous insects near the poisonous mushrooms. Some of the poisonous insects hid under the huge caps of the poisonous mushrooms, some walked in the soil, and some were weaving webs in the corners. It's them. Su Zimo's heart suddenly lit up. These poisonous insects were too weak. Su Zimo did not take them seriously at first. It was not until now that he realized. The environment of the canopy state was most suitable for the survival of poisonous insects. It could be said that all kinds of poisonous insects were everywhere. His whereabouts were all exposed to the eyes of these poisonous insects. These poisonous insects must have some way of communicating with the Five Venoms Temple so that they could send messages anytime and anywhere. In this case, it was almost impossible to escape from the canopy state. Finally found you. At this moment, a voice came from afar. The person was extremely fast and arrived in the blink of an eye. A Tao Master expert. Su Zimo's eyes flashed with a cold light. He could hide in the universe fortune map at any time, but before that, he could try to fight against a Tao Master. It was a good opportunity to test his battle strength and see how strong he could be. Back in the Chaos Hall, the reason why he could kill 2 Tao Masters in a few breaths was mainly because he caught them off guard. If he were to fight against a Tao Master, it would be hard to say who would win. The Tao Master should have heard of Su Zimo's methods long ago and did not underestimate him at all. The moment he arrived, he conjured 2 gigantic scorpion pincers with both hands and charged over. The scorpion pincers were laced with poison. Not only that, they also contained the power of Tao that he cultivated. Rumble. Boom. Su Zimo's blood chi surged and his bloodline phenomenon appeared. He supported the chaos world and collided against the 2 gigantic scorpion pincers. Boom. There was a deafening sound. The shock wave from the collision of both sides overturned the surrounding mushrooms and plants. You can withstand a single attack from me? The Tao Master of the scorpion race was startled and exclaimed, "You're indeed capable." There was a difference of an entire major cultivation realm between them. In reality, the reason why Su Zimo was able to withstand that attack was because he had already released his full strength and even his bloodline phenomenon. Of course, it was still extremely difficult for him to suppress a Tao Master with his bloodline phenomenon and chaos world alone. Su Zimo did not intend to waste time with the Tao Master. With a long roar, 2 sword lights tore through the chaos and landed in his hands. The Avicii and Netherworld swords were born. Su Zimo wielded both swords and slashed towards the Tao Master of the scorpion race. A black shadow flashed by at an extremely fast speed, leaving behind a series of afterimages, making it difficult to distinguish which one was real and which one was fake. Su Zimo did not care about whether the black shadow was real or fake. He waved his Avicii and Netherworld swords and slashed at the black shadow continuously. Clang, clang, clang. There was a series of crisp sounds. The black shadow was sliced into pieces by the Avicii and Netherworld swords and scattered on the ground, emitting a pungent stench. Su Zimo focused his attention. The black shadow was a pitch-black scorpion tail. The scorpion race Tao Master was shocked. His scorpion tail was his hidden killing move. To think that it would be sliced into pieces by the 2 swords the moment it was released. Chapter 3286. However, the Tao Lord of the Scorpion race did not have a bloodline on his tail. Even if it was severed, there was no wound. The killing intent of the Netherworld sword could not kill his essence spirit. Even so, the Tao Lord of the Scorpion race broke out in cold sweat. Wielding the Avicii and Netherworld swords, Su Zimo seized the opportunity to charge forward, wanting to kill the Tao Lord of the Scorpion race. Humph! Right then, a cold snort sounded from the side. The voice was neither loud nor soft. However, Su Zimo frowned slightly and his ears hurt. So strong. A single voice was able to penetrate his bloodline phenomenon and world. Su Zimo's spirit perception warned him, and he did not have time to attack the Tao Lord of the Scorpion race. He shifted his feet and dodged to the side. Shoo! It was as though something had brushed past him in a close shave. Su Zimo scanned with his spirit consciousness but saw nothing. Su Zimo channeled the two god stones, nether fluorescence and illumination. His left eye was pitch black and his right eye was pure white as he focused his gaze. Everything in front of his eyes became clear. What passed by him earlier on was a spider silk that was as thin as a cow's hair. If not for the illumination and nether fluorescence god stone, he would not have been able to see it clearly. Su Zimo held his swords horizontally in front of him and looked over. Not far away, a middle-aged man stood. The aura he exuded was even stronger than the Tao Lord of the Scorpion race earlier on. He was at greater mastery of the Tao manipulation realm, a great venerable expert. Su Zimo had a grim expression. Before he could think further, the great venerable extended all 10 fingers and grabbed in his direction. 10 strands of spider silk appeared out of thin air and intertwined, forming a gigantic web that enveloped him. Su Zimo hollered softly and waved the Avicii and Netherworld swords, slashing down at the spider web. When the Avicii and Netherworld swords struck the spider web, it caved in deeply and even deformed a little. However, it did not break. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. At the Tao manipulation realm, one would control and even attempt to make use of the power of the Tao. In the Tao enlightenment realm, one could comprehend the great Tao. At most, one could manifest a great Tao phenomenon. And when one cultivated to the Tao control realm, the great Tao they cultivated would become a weapon in the hands of cultivators and materialize. However, after this grand monarch expert had fused his great Tao into the spider silk, even the Avicii and Netherworld swords were unable to cut through it. Withdraw! This great sovereign expert didn't even get close. He just stood in the distance and controlled the spider web. He closed his hands, and the spider web wrapped around the Avicii and Netherworld swords. Naturally, he could see how powerful the Avicii and Netherworld swords were, and he wanted to take them for himself. Su Zimo unleashed all of his strength, wanting to withdraw his sword and retreat. However, the spider webs on the Avicii and Netherworld swords grew tighter and tighter. Even the sharpness and killing intent on the two swords were covered. Suddenly, Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon shook and was on the verge of collapse, and then it collapsed with a bang. Unknowingly, a spider web had appeared behind him and enveloped him. His bloodline phenomenon could not withstand it at all. Let's see where else you can run to. The great sovereign sneered and waved his hands continuously. The spider webs around Su Zimo increased and formed a gigantic net that sealed off all his escape routes. The strength of a great sovereign was way too strong and the difference between the two of them was way too great. Su Zimo sighed internally. It seemed like he still had to hide in the universe creation diagram. Right then, two extremely domineering auras descended and one of them landed beside Su Zimo. The space that was initially enveloping Su Zimo distorted and the dense spider webs of the great Tao collapsed rapidly. Another terrifying force rushed towards the great venerate expert's position. The great sovereign's expression changed as he channeled his essence spirit and weaved an impenetrable spider web in front of him. Boom! However, the spider web shattered instantly and turned into dust. The body of the great sovereign was also torn apart by the terrifying power. His primordial spirit did not even manage to escape before he perished. A great sovereign was dead. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. The two powers that descended earlier on came from two different directions. It was clear that they belonged to different great Taos and experts. The former made use of space to break the spider web. The latter was even more ferocious and destroyed the spider web directly. To be able to kill a great sovereign expert forcefully, their cultivation was most likely at the perfected Tao manipulation realm, supreme experts. However, Su Zimo did not know where the two experts who attacked earlier on came from or what their intentions were. The Scorpion race Tao Lord of Five Venoms Palace was so scared that his face turned pale. He could neither stay nor escape and froze on the spot for a moment. Two supreme sovereigns have graced us with your presence and killed a Tao Lord of Five Venoms Palace right away. What great methods! Right then, a beautiful woman descended from midair. She wore a colorful Taoist robe and her long hair was coiled up. Her lips were scarlet and her gaze scanned the two voids with a frosty expression. Another supreme being. Furthermore, it was a supreme expert of Five Venoms Palace. Su Zimo was on high alert and was prepared to hide in the universe creation diagram at any moment. Not far away, the void trembled slightly. It was like a calm lake that suddenly rippled. A gray-robed old man walked out from it. "You cultivate the great Tao of space?" The beautiful woman narrowed her eyes slightly and could tell what Tao technique this person cultivated. She said coldly, "I'm one of the Five Venoms Palace Masters, Sky Spider." "Fellow Taoist, you don't look familiar. How should I address you?" "You don't have to know," the gray-robed old man said indifferently with his hands behind his back, as though he was not bothered by the beautiful woman's killing intent. "Five Venoms Palace has no feud with you, right?" The Sky Spider Palace Master asked again. "That's right," the gray-robed old man nodded. The Sky Spider Palace Master asked sternly, "Then why did you kill a great sovereign of Five Venoms Palace?" "I didn't kill him." The gray-robed old man's expression was calm and his tone was indifferent. "All right," the Sky Spider Palace Master said in a deep voice. "Since that's the case, I won't pursue this matter. Fellow Taoist, please leave. This lad harmed my son and killed a Tao Lord of Five Venoms Palace. I must pay with my life." The gray-robed old man said indifferently, "You won't be able to kill him with me around." Su Zimo frowned slightly and took a closer look at the gray-robed old man. The gray-robed old man was extremely unfamiliar and he definitely did not know him. He did not know why this supreme being wanted to save him. The Sky Spider Palace Master's expression darkened as he said coldly, "In that case, you want to go against Five Venoms Palace?" "I don't care about a mere Five Venoms Palace." The gray-robed old man still had his hands behind his back and his tone was indifferent, as though he was talking about something extremely ordinary. "Haha." The Sky Spider Palace Master roared in laughter. "Good, good, good. I'll remember what happened today." At the moment, she was alone and had some reservations. She wanted to stall for time and wait for the Sky Centipede Palace Master and other experts of Five Venoms Palace to arrive before making a decision. The Sky Spider Palace Master swept his gaze to the other side and said indifferently, "Why isn't that Tao Lord appearing yet? How long are you planning to hide? Aren't you going to give me an explanation for killing a great sovereign expert of Five Venoms Palace?" Behind a poisonous mushroom, a black-robed young man strode out with a cold expression. Glancing sideways at the Sky Spider Palace Master, he asked, "What explanation do you want?" End of chapter. Chapter 3287. The Sky Spider Palace Lord's expression changed when he saw this person. Prime Siemie. The gray-robed elder's expression did not change when he heard this name, as if he already knew who this person was. When the Scorpion Race Tao Venerate heard these 4 words, his body trembled, and a trace of fear flashed past the depths of his eyes. The Sky Spider Palace Lord's expression changed several times before he said slowly, "Why aren't you following the evil Lord in the northwest? Why are you here in my little canopy state?" "I'm happy. Why do you care?" Prime Siemie sneered with a disdainful expression. The Sky Spider Palace Lord almost choked to death with that sentence. He cursed in his heart and clenched his fists, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. If this person killed the 5 Poison Palaces' supremacy, that supremacy would have died for nothing. Even if the Sky Centipede Palace Lord arrived and they joined forces, they did not have much of a chance of winning. Moreover, there was a gray-robed elder with an unknown identity who seemed to have a powerful background. Just as the Sky Spider Palace Lord was pondering, Prime Siemie suddenly became murderous. He turned around with a dark expression and said coldly, "How dare you call the evil Lord by his name?" The Sky Spider Palace Lord's heart skipped a beat, and he instinctively opened his mouth. "You want to..." Before he could finish his sentence, Prime Siemie had already attacked. Prime Siemie grabbed the void in front of him, and a pitch-black spear appeared. It gathered a terrifying great Tao aura and stabbed towards the Sky Spider Palace Lord. The spear pierced through the air, emitting a whistling sound. The surrounding void trembled and distorted, unable to withstand the force. "You're crazy!" The Sky Spider Palace Lord screamed and activated his essence spirit. He opened his mouth and spat out a large amount of spider silk. He waved his hands and weaved a web in front of him. Layers of spider webs landed on the pitch-black spear, but the moment they landed, they were shattered by the great Tao aura that burst forth from the spear. The Sky Spider Palace Lord kept retreating, pulling away from the pitch-black spear. He then released a great Tao that wrapped around the pitch-black spear. It was unknown how many layers were layered before the pitch-black spear was stuck in midair. Prime Xiemye had already left his original spot and arrived in front of the Sky Spider Palace Lord. He raised his hand and slapped down, causing the surrounding void to collapse instantly. At the Tao manipulation realm, the Sky Spider Palace Lord would be able to unleash a huge amount of power with every move they made. The Sky Spider Palace Master activated his bloodline and raised his hand to meet the attack. Bang! The two palms collided, and a muffled sound erupted. In the next moment, the Sky Spider Palace Lord's palm exploded. The terrifying power continued to spread, and her entire arm turned into a bloody mist. Ah! The Sky Spider Palace Master let out a miserable shriek. She cultivated the Great Tao and was even better at using poison to win. In this kind of head-on confrontation, he was no match for the other party. Not to mention that Sovereign Xiemye had cultivated the extremely ferocious Grand Tao of Destruction. His fists were capable of destroying everything. After destroying one of the Sky Spider Palace Master's arms, Sovereign Xiemye's palms were stained with spider poison. However, he didn't care at all. He chased after them and continuously attacked. In close combat, the Sky Spider Palace Master had nowhere to run. After a series of attacks from Xiemye, his body and soul were completely destroyed. In just a dozen breaths of time, the Heavenly Spider Palace Master had already died, leaving behind only a large amount of stinking blood mist. Su Zimo saw the whole process and was secretly speechless. Autarch Xiemye was truly ruthless. The Sky Spider Palace Master merely mentioned the evil lord and turned hostile on the spot, killing the other party right away. Could the evil lord that the Sky Spider Palace Master mentioned be the evil emperor of the middle world? Su Zimo thought to himself and looked at the gray-robed old man not far away. Right from the beginning, the gray-robed old man had been watching by the sidelines. Sensing Su Zimo's gaze, the gray-robed old man smiled gently and nodded. Strange. Su Zimo muttered internally. However, he did not let down his guard and was prepared to hide in the universe creation diagram if the situation turned bad. He had experienced way too much in Tianhuang mainland and the middle world. Naturally, he would be wary of any stranger. When the Tao Lord of the Scorpion race saw that, he knelt on the ground and begged while shivering, "Sovereign Xiemye, please spare my life. Please spare my life." Sovereign Xiemye glanced sideways at that person and raised his brow. "I didn't want to kill you. Why are you begging me?" "Yes, yes, yes." The Tao Lord of the Scorpion race was scared out of his wits and said hurriedly, "I'm not begging, I'm not begging." As he said that, the Tao Lord of the Scorpion race got up and scrambled into the distance without a care for his image as a Tao Lord. It was clear that he was extremely afraid. The gray-robed old man cupped his fists towards Sovereign Xiemye. "Fellow Taoist, your cultivation has improved. Is the poison on your hand all right?" "Don't call me brother." Sovereign Xiemye pursed his lips. "What does my injury have to do with you?" Initially, the gray-robed old man had good intentions. However, he was rebuked by Sovereign Xiemye's words. The gray-robed old man was not angry and merely smiled. Sovereign Xiemye flung his slightly swollen palm. "If I knew that an old man like you would protect him, I wouldn't have come over." With that said, Sovereign Xiemye turned and left without looking at Su Zimo the entire time. Su Zimo was baffled by what he heard. The him that Sovereign Xiemye mentioned seemed to be referring to him. Su Zimo cupped his fists towards Sovereign Xiemye's back. "Thank you for saving me, senior." No matter what, Sovereign Xiemye had helped him, so he had to thank him. Sovereign Xiemye was about to leave, but when he heard this, he suddenly paused and turned back. He looked at Su Zimo with a malicious gaze. Su Zimo was a little scared by his gaze. He secretly activated the universe creation diagram and prepared to run at any time. This person was crazy. It was as if one wrong word would provoke him into a fight and injure others. Moreover, he did not know which words would trigger this person's nerves. Sovereign Xiemye came in front of Su Zimo and sized him up. He smiled coldly. "No need to thank me. I didn't want to save you. You'd better cultivate slowly. That way, you can live a little longer. If you enter the Tao manipulation realm, be careful. I can find you at any time and kill you to take back that thing. Dreamlike token?" Su Zimo probed. Sovereign Xiemye muttered, "I really don't know why Master would give you the dreamlike token. But it doesn't matter. I'll snatch it back from Master in the future." Hearing this, Su Zimo confirmed one thing. The evil lord that the Sky Spider Palace Master mentioned should be the evil emperor, who was also the master of this sovereign Xiemye. In that case, it should be the evil emperor's instructions for this sovereign Xiemye to come and protect him. Sovereign Xiemye laughed and threatened, "Also, I won't wait for you to cultivate to the perfected Tao manipulation realm before looking for you. I like to bully the weak the most. I'm giving you this chance because of Master. We'll talk about it after you cultivate to the Tao manipulation realm. Otherwise, I'll snatch the dreamlike token right now." Sovereign Xiemye stretched out his red and swollen palm, as if he wanted to make a few gestures in front of Su Zimo. However, he realized that his palm was getting swollen and ugly, so he retracted it unhappily. Sovereign Xiemye turned and left, disappearing quickly. End of chapter. Chapter 3288. Su Zimo turned to look at the gray-robed elder and bowed. "Thank you for your help, Senior. May I know your name?" "You can call me Uncle Feng," the gray-robed elder said with a smile. It didn't seem like a Taoist name. It was more like a casual address. Su Zimo was a little puzzled and couldn't help but ask, "Do you know me, Senior?" "No, I don't." Uncle Feng smiled. "This is the first time we've met." Su Zimo was even more puzzled. He asked again, "Then why did you come here to save me?" Uncle Feng shook his head. "I can't say much about the reason. Perhaps you'll know in the future." Su Zimo frowned slightly and thought about the people he had befriended. He definitely hadn't met Uncle Feng before. In other words, someone must have ordered him to come and save him, similar to Xiemye. Xiemye did it because of the evil lord's order. What was the reason for Uncle Feng? There were only a few powerhouses from the Great Thousand Worlds that he had befriended. Most of them, like the lords of the heavenly courts, had fought with him and wouldn't send anyone to help. Apart from the lords of the heavenly courts, only the demon master and the evil emperor were left. The Lord of Hell and the Brahma Ghost Mother wouldn't send anyone to save him. Could it be the demon master? Then, Su Zimo denied it in his heart. This didn't seem like the demon master style. The demon master had always only thought about his own goals and never cared about friendship. Back then, for the sake of conquering the heavens, he could even ignore Wu Dao and suppress Fengdu. Why would he care about an ascender from the middle world? Su Zimo thought for a long time but couldn't figure it out. Uncle Feng asked, "What are your plans for the future?" Su Zimo said, "I can't continue to stay in Kanagai State. As for where to go, I haven't thought about it yet." "I can recommend you a place," Uncle Feng said. "Senior, please tell me," Su Zimo said. "The southern region." Uncle Feng said, "The southern region will hold a heavenly venerate grand meeting. The geniuses of the 49 spiritual lands will gather at the ancestral fire's sacred ground and compete with each other to determine a supreme heavenly venerable." Su Zimo heard this calmly. He had been fighting all this time, so he didn't care about such a title. Although a clash between geniuses of the same level was beneficial to cultivation, it wasn't very attractive to him so far. What he wanted the most was to increase his cultivation as soon as possible. Seeing that Su Zimo did not seem interested, Uncle Feng reminded him, "Being a supreme heavenly venerate isn't just a title. You'll eventually be rewarded by the ancestral fire's sacred ground and even have the chance to join it." "Of course." He wanted to revive the primal chaos sacred land in the future, so he wasn't interested in joining the ancestral fire sacred land. Moreover, the 9 lords of the heavenly courts of the middle world were most likely from the 5 great holy lands, including the ancestral fire holy land. Right now, his cultivation realm was too low and he did not want to be noticed by the sacred grounds. The rewards from the sacred grounds would definitely not be bad. However, after weighing the pros and cons in his heart, Su Zimo still said, "Thank you for your guidance, Senior. It's just that my cultivation realm is too low right now. Even if I participate in the Southern Region's Heavenly Venerate Grand Meeting, I won't have a chance to obtain the supreme title." "Are you sure you don't want to go?" Uncle Feng said with a fake smile. "I'm sure you won't want to miss out on the reward of the Supreme Heavenly Venerate this time round." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He could tell that Uncle Feng seemed to be implying something and asked, "What reward?" "The Merit Golden Lotus." Uncle Feng's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind, "And it's a grade 12 one." After saying that, Uncle Feng smiled and waited for Su Zimo's reply. Su Zimo's heart trembled. Not only did Uncle Feng know about the Merit Golden Lotus, he even knew its whereabouts and that the reward of the Supreme Heavenly Venerate this time round was the Merit Golden Lotus. It would have been fine if it had been any other treasure. However, the Merit Golden Lotus was way too important to Su Zimo. Not only would it improve his physical body and bloodline, but obtaining the Merit Golden Lotus would also mean that his inheritance memories would be perfected and he might even be able to break through in a short period of time. Back then, Chaos Qinglian had split into 4 during the turmoil. There was nothing more beneficial to him than the 2 remaining lotus flowers. Uncle Feng was right. He did not want to miss out on the Merit Golden Lotus, even if he had to take a certain risk. The Heavenly Venerate Grand Meet was held by the Ancestral Fire's sacred ground. Since Uncle Feng knew so much about the Heavenly Venerate Grand Meet and even knew about the final reward, it meant that there was a high chance that he came from the Ancestral Fire's sacred ground. "Senior, what do you need me to do?" Su Zimo did not express his opinion immediately and asked in a deep voice. "There's no need," Uncle Feng said with a smile. Uncle Feng smiled. "I'm just giving you this information. Whether you can get the final reward will depend on your own ability." Su Zimo frowned secretly. Not only did Uncle Feng rush here from the Ancestral Fire sacred ground to save him, he even gave him such important information without asking for anything in return. That was truly strange. Why would a complete stranger, and a martial saint expert at that, help him like this? "All right, I'll go." Su Zimo pondered for a long time before agreeing. On the one hand, the Merit Golden Lotus was way too important to him. Since he knew the whereabouts of the Merit Golden Lotus, he had to fight for it. On the other hand, Uncle Feng should not have any intention of harming him. Supreme Siemye clearly knew this person and had said that he would not come over with Su Zimo protecting him. In other words, Supreme Siemye believed that Su Zimo would not encounter any danger with Uncle Feng around. "Let's go." Uncle Feng waved his hand and said, "I'll send you to the Ancestral Fire's sacred ground. As for where you can go during the Heavenly Venerate Grand Meet, that has nothing to do with me." Su Zimo walked towards Uncle Feng and asked, "How long will it take to reach the Ancestral Fire's sacred ground from here?" "Very soon." Uncle Feng smiled and waved his hand. The aura of the Great Tao spread and cut open the void beside him, revealing a spatial tunnel. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. He had heard from Su Rue and the others that even Tao manipulation realm experts could not teleport across the void in the vast thousand worlds. Uncle Feng seemed to have seen through Su Zimo's doubts and said with a smile, "Normally, Tao manipulation realm experts can't travel across the void. Only saints and sacred spirits can travel across the vast thousand worlds at will. However, if you cultivate the great Tao of space, you can do that." Su Zimo was enlightened. Using the great Tao of space, one could naturally travel across the void. That was also the advantage of cultivating the great Tao of space. Uncle Feng waved his hand and released a great Tao of space barrier to protect Su Zimo before leading him into the spatial tunnel. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from the sky above Kanagai State. Not long after the two of them left Kanagai State, the other 4 palace masters of 5 Venoms Palace arrived one after another. The Tao master of the Scorpion race who had escaped earlier followed behind them. After the death of the Sky Spider Palace master, the blood mist that filled the air had yet to dissipate. The 4 palace masters looked at the traces left behind by the battle just now with ugly expressions. There's only one update today. Everyone, go to bed early. End of chapter. Chapter 3289. The Scorpio Palace Master said in a low voice, "It's hard to avenge Sky Spider's death at the hands of Siemia Prime, but we can't let the culprit, Su Zimo, live." The Sky Centipede Palace Master used his divine consciousness to communicate with the surrounding poisonous insects. He frowned and murmured, "He went to the southern region for the heavenly venerate grand meet? The southern region is too far away from here. Our 5 Venoms Palace is powerful in Kanagai State, but we can't reach there." The Sky Serpent Palace Master shook his head. The Sky Toad Palace Master said, "Are we just going to let this go?" The Scorpion Tao Master said tentatively, "Palace Masters, Su Zimo seems to have Qinglian's bloodline." The Sky Centipede Palace Master's eyes lit up and his lips curled into a sinister smile. He said slowly, "It's fine if he goes to the southern region. We don't have to do it ourselves. We can get someone else to do it for us." "You mean we should spread the news?" The Sky Scorpio Palace Master asked. "That's right." The Sky Centipede Palace Master said, "After all, it's the bloodline of the Chaos Sacred Master. I believe there will be people in the 5 sacred grounds interested in Qinglian. As long as he goes to the ancestral fire sacred ground, he can forget about leaving alive. Palace Master is wise." All the 5 Venoms Palace cultivators praised. The Sky Toad Palace Master frowned and said, "I don't think the sacred grounds will believe us if we spread the news, right?" The Sky Centipede Palace Master said, "The sacred grounds won't suspect anything if Master spreads the news. Besides, we have to report Sky Spider's death to Master. Master loved Sky Spider the most. I didn't expect him to be killed by Siemia Prime." The Sky Serpent Palace Master sighed. In the space tunnel, Su Zimo thought of the 5 Venoms Palace and asked, "Senior, the 5 Venoms Palace and other forces rule the 108 states in the Southeast Territory. Why haven't we heard of any saints?" It had been more than 6 billion years since the Chaos Sacred Ground was destroyed. No matter how difficult it was to become a saint, Su Zimo didn't believe that no one had become a saint over the years. Supreme Lin Meng and the others had been dragged into the universe fortune diagram after the destruction of the Chaos Sacred Land. They knew nothing about what had happened in the Great Thousand World over the years. Uncle Feng was the only one who could give him an explanation. "It's not that no saints have been born," Uncle Feng said. "Most of the saints in the Great Thousand Worlds are under the command of the 5 Great Sacred Lands. Moreover, the saints will stay out of the conflicts between the major forces. They won't attack creatures below the saint realm." "Why is that?" Su Zimo asked. Uncle Feng said, "Saints will be tainted by karma if they kill creatures below the saint realm. Once the Great Tao was tainted by karma, it would affect one's combat strength. More importantly, it might lead to the punishment of the heavens, which could lead to death." Su Zimo nodded secretly. In that case, under the deterrence of the heavenly punishment, the saints would indeed have some scruples. Uncle Feng said, "For example, the 5 Poisons Temple in the Canopy State also has a saint behind them. Those 5 poisonous bugs are the pets of that poison saint." Su Zimo was stunned. The 5 Poisons Temple had dominated the Canopy State for many years, but the 5 Palace Lords were just poisonous bugs raised by a saint. Uncle Feng continued, "However, even if Autark Siemia kills all 5 of them, the poison saint won't dare to make a move against him." As the two spoke, they reached the end of the spatial tunnel. Walking out of the void, Su Zimo looked around. Everything before him was scarlet red and the surrounding temperature was clearly much higher than in the Canopy Guy region, surrounded by heat waves. There was sand and stone everywhere, and some places were even burning. Many of the mountain peaks were flowing with boiling hot lava. In such an environment, There were very few plants that could survive. There wasn't a single bit of greenery in a radius of 10,000 miles. In the sky ahead, one could see a vast expanse of magnificent buildings. They towered above the horizon and reached into the clouds, clustered together like giant balls of holy fire. Uncle Feng pointed at the magnificent buildings and said, "The ancestral fire's sacred land is ahead. I'll send you here. The celestial venerate battle will take a few more days. You can participate then." "Do you have any other questions?" Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo asked, "Where do the experts come from for the battle of the heavenly venerables? Will the people of the ancestral fire's sacred land be participating?" Uncle Feng smiled and shook his head. "If someone from the sacred land participates, you won't have a chance to win the title of supremacy. The 8 weaves of the Great Thousand World will hold similar events. Generally speaking, experts from other weaves won't travel thousands of miles to the ancestral fire's sacred land to participate in the southern region's supremacy battle. The southeastern region has 108 states, and the southern region has 49 spiritual lands. You'll be facing the most outstanding heavenly venerates from these 49 spiritual lands. This kind of event is a way for the sacred land to select talents. If someone from the sacred land participates, it'll be too much of a bully." Su Zimo's expression didn't change. "They're all in the Tao comprehending realm. Are the people from the sacred land that strong?" Uncle Feng said, "You're now at the minor completion Tao comprehending realm. With your physical body, bloodline, and spirit treasures, you can try to kill grand heavenly venerates and supreme heavenly venerates. But against someone from the sacred land, it won't be so easy. Moreover, the sacred land has the inheritance of the sacred race." "Sacred race?" Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. "Does the sacred race of the ancestral fire's sacred land refer to the vermilion bird race or the phoenix race?" Back then, among the 9 lords of the heavenly courts, the vermilion heaven lord's true form was the vermilion bird. In flame heaven, there were cultivators with the vermilion bird bloodline, but they weren't from the vermilion bird race. "Neither." Uncle Feng shook his head. "The sacred race is the sacred race. There are very few of them, and they aren't from the vermilion bird race or the phoenix race. These 2 races can only be considered members of the sacred land, but they aren't part of the sacred race." Su Zimo was shocked. The phoenix race and the dragon race were known as taboos in the lesser thousand world. The vermilion bird was also known as a sacred spirit in many ancient books. Even the vermilion bird race and the phoenix race weren't considered sacred races. What was the sacred race's background? Uncle Feng said, "Whether it's the vermilion bird race, the phoenix race, or the flame race, only those with ancestral awakening can become sacred races." Realization dawned on Su Zimo. He suddenly had an answer to a few questions that had been in his heart for many years. Only those with ancestral awakening were qualified to become sacred races. He knew of 2 people who had achieved ancestral awakening: Night Spirit and Carefree. That was also why Night Spirit could come out of the fiend battlefield alive. Night Spirit's ancestral awakening was considered part of the sacred race even in the greater thousand world. Not to mention the celestial world, even those in the heavenly court wouldn't dare to hurt him. After Night Spirit and Carefree entered the martial emperor realm, they were forcefully taken away by a force in the greater thousand world. It was very likely that they were summoned by experts from the sacred land. When Su Zimo left, Carefree had yet to enter the martial emperor realm. However, when the monkey entered the martial emperor realm, it was also taken away by the power of the greater thousand world. Could it be that the monkey's bloodline had also undergone ancestral awakening? If that was the case, Night Spirit and the monkey shouldn't be in any danger in the greater thousand world. Night Spirit had entered the sacred race and obtained the sacred race's inheritance. He would definitely have a great opportunity, and his future achievements might not be inferior to his. It was just that he didn't know which sacred land Night Spirit was taken to. Su Zimo was about to ask again when some cultivators sped past and looked over. Uncle Feng didn't seem to want to be noticed. His body moved and he disappeared into the void. "Weapons are not allowed in the sacred land. You can go on your own." After leaving behind these words, Uncle Feng disappeared. End of chapter. Chapter 3290. That person doesn't look like a heavenly venerate from the southern region. He seems to be a human? Does a heavenly venerate at the initial success of the Tao comprehension realm want to compete for the title of supreme in the sacred ground? Maybe he's just here to join in the fun. The group of cultivators sped past not far away and looked at Su Zimo. They chatted and laughed without any intention of hiding anything. Land of intense spirits. One of the 49 spiritual lands of the southern region. This group of people was the top group of heavenly venerate experts in the land of intense spirits. When they saw Su Zimo's cultivation level and that he was a human, they naturally did not take him seriously. The man in the lead had a head of red hair, phoenix eyes, and a calm aura. He stared at Su Zimo for a while before saying softly, "This person should have some tricks up his sleeve. He's not as weak as he looks." "Senior brother Fan, you think too highly of him." The others smiled and did not think much of it. The group of people quickly passed by Su Zimo and entered the ancestral fire's sacred ground. Su Zimo stood quietly for a moment before heading towards the sacred ground. There were many heavenly venerate experts guarding the ancestral fire's sacred ground. One could only enter after paying some origin stones. Su Zimo handed over a few origin stones. When the guards nearby saw that he had arrived alone, they only took a few more glances before allowing him to enter the sacred land. The ancestral fire's sacred ground was bustling with noise and excitement. All the architectural styles inside were related to flames. Some were in the shape of flames while others were engraved with flame totems. Even the streets in the sacred ground were named after vermilion birds and phoenixes. The rest was not much different from the secular world. Cultivators set up stalls on the streets, displaying some treasures and chatting with others. There were many restaurants and inns on both sides of the long street. The cultivators coming and going in the sacred ground were almost all above the Tao manifestation realm. Even Imperial Emperor experts were rare. For many living beings with long lifespans, the joy of good food and wine was still irreplaceable. Su Zimo walked through the crowd and found an inn on the street to stay, waiting for the final battle of the heavenly venerates to begin. Every room in this inn had a mysterious restriction on the walls, which could block the probing of divine sense and sound. Obviously, it was the work of an expert. Those who could open an inn in the ancestral fire Holy Land all had extraordinary means. Su Zimo spent most of his time cultivating in seclusion in his room. Every day, he would take some time out of his day to come to the main hall and find a corner to enjoy his wine. He would listen to the discussions of the cultivators around him and gather information. Everything in the southern region was extremely unfamiliar to him. Even though he had many trump cards, he didn't dare to underestimate others. He asked about the most powerful heavenly venerates from the 49 spiritual lands. However, the past 2 days had been a little strange. The number of celestial venerables in the ancestral fire's sacred ground had increased dramatically. There were even many cultivators in other clothes who had arrived. They were obviously not from the southern mountain range. On this day, as usual, Su Zimo went to the corner of the inn's lobby and ordered a pot of wine. He sipped it slowly and listened to the conversations of the cultivators in the lobby. Have you heard? The Southern Region's Heavenly Venerate Conference has alarmed the Yin-Yang Holy Land. I saw a group of people from the Yin-Yang Sacred Land arrive yesterday. It's not just the Yin-Yang Sacred Land. Another cultivator said, people from the 4 great sacred grounds are here. Moreover, there are heavenly venerates from the sacred tribe. The words sacred tribe caused an uproar in the crowd. Many cultivators gathered around. Someone asked curiously, is the sacred tribe also participating in this heavenly venerate conference? If that's the case, the geniuses from the 49 spiritual lands probably won't have a chance to compete for the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate. Yes, the sacred tribe is invincible among their peers. They have the atavistic bloodline. Only the sacred tribe can fight against the sacred tribe. The other races are not strong enough. This is a little strange. Why would the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate in the Southern Region attract experts from other territories? Even the sacred tribe is alarmed. Could it be that the reward this time is very special? No one will know what the reward is until the last moment. Everyone gathered together and discussed, but they couldn't come up with a reason. Someone in the crowd coughed softly and said proudly, I heard a rumor. Tell us, tell us. Ox-Nose, don't keep us in suspense. Everyone urged him. The ox-nosed old Taoist stroked his long beard and said slowly, as far as I know, the sacred tribe of the 4 great holy lands came here this time not for the title of Supreme Heavenly Venerate, nor for the final reward, but for, at this point, the ox-nosed old Taoist deliberately dragged out his syllables before saying something shocking, Creation Qinglian. What? There was a burst of exclamations from the crowd. Creation Qinglian has been born? I heard that the primal chaos sacred leader was the green lotus of creation. After he died, the green lotus of creation disappeared. Creation Qinglian is of great help to heavenly venerates who cultivate the creation great Tao, wood great Tao, life great Tao, and so on. She can make it easier for them to comprehend the great Tao. Hearing this, Su Zimo, who was in the corner, frowned. He knew that it was impossible to hide Qinglian's bloodline in the great wide world forever. However, he did not expect that this matter would spread to the ears of the 4 great holy lands so quickly. Uncle Feng knew about his bloodline, but he should not do such a thing. The most likely culprit was the 5 Venoms Temple. Borrowing a knife to kill. Su Zimo's mind raced, and he quickly guessed the 5 Venoms Temple scheme. A cold light flashed in his eyes. The old Taoist priest continued, it's not just Creation Qinglian that has been born. I heard that Creation Qinglian has already fused with a cultivator. That person is a recent ascender and is now in the ancestral fire's sacred land. No wonder the 4 great holy lands were alarmed, and even the sacred tribe appeared here. If I were that Creation Qinglian, I would leave immediately. The old Taoist priest sneered and said, in the ancestral fire's sacred land, weapons are not allowed. He can still live for a few more days. Once he leaves, it will be his death. What does he look like? What's his cultivation level? A cultivator asked. The old Taoist priest replied, I was fortunate enough to take a look at that person's portrait. It's a man with black hair and green robes. He has delicate features and looks somewhat scholarly. It's said that his cultivation level is only at the initial Tao comprehension realm. Then isn't that person dead for sure? Now that you mention it, I seem to have some impression of that person. I seem to have seen him somewhere recently. When Su Zimo heard this, he was about to get up and leave. At that moment, someone inadvertently glanced over and suddenly screamed, over there! The voice immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. In an instant, hundreds and thousands of cultivators in the hall turned their heads and looked at Su Zimo. At the same time, 4 supreme heavenly venerables entered the hall and looked around as if they were looking for something. Soon, the 4 supreme heavenly venerables also locked their gazes on Su Zimo, revealing a trace of murderous intent. End of chapter. Chapter 3291. Many cultivators in the hall paled when they saw the tokens hanging from the waists of the 4 supreme Empyreans. They hurriedly retreated, creating an empty space. "They're from the sacred land." Cries of surprise rang out from the crowd. Su Zimo glanced at the tokens hanging from the waists of the 4 supreme Empyreans. The token hanging from the leftmost supreme Empyrean's waist was made of a black and white yin and yang fish. He probably came from the yin-yang sacred land. The token of the supreme Empyrean next to him was covered in a layer of lightning. If he wasn't mistaken, he probably came from the Tian Fa sacred land. The token of the 3rd supreme Empyrean was empty, but a single glance was enough to make one's mind sink into a vast expanse of space-time and lose oneself. They were probably from the space-time sacred land. The token of the 4th supreme Empyrean was blood-red and filled with killing intent. If he wasn't mistaken, he probably came from the void sacred land. These 4 supreme Empyreans had extremely powerful bloodlines. Even before they revealed themselves, Su Zimo already felt a wave of pressure. Are these people from the sacred race? No, they don't need to wear tokens that show their identity. They're all from the sacred land. They're probably servants of the sacred race. They're just servants, but they can exude such a terrifying aura. The supreme Empyrean from the yin-yang sacred land looked expressionlessly at Su Zimo in the corner of the hall. "Come with us," he said coolly. "Where to?" "You don't need to know." The supreme Empyrean from the Tian Fa sacred land spoke calmly, but there was no trace of politeness in his tone. The commotion had attracted the attention of many cultivators from the ancestral fire sacred land, and they were gathering here. Perhaps the crowd was too large, but a group of patrolling sacred land guards pushed through the crowd and squeezed in. The sacred land guards glanced at the hall. Realization flashed through the captain's eyes as if he'd understood something. Su Zimo asked with a calm expression, "What if I don't go?" "Then it's not up to you." The supreme Empyrean from the void sacred land walked towards Su Zimo with murderous eyes. Su Zimo looked at the group of ancestral fire Holy Land guards outside the lobby. Normally speaking, the duty of this group of guards was to maintain order in the Holy Land. If someone dared to use weapons without permission, these guards would act to stop them and even suppress the initiator. However, the commander of the ancestral fire Holy Land seemed to have turned a blind eye to this. He turned around and shouted at the cultivators around him, "Stop looking and disperse." Su Zimo's expression turned cold. The guards of the ancestral fire Holy Land clearly wanted to protect him. These people want to capture someone in the ancestral fire's sacred ground. The Holy Land forbids the use of weapons, and the guards don't care? You're too naive. The rules of the Holy Lands restrict us. Those people are all from the Holy Lands. For the sake of the Holy Lands, these guards will turn a blind eye. The old Taoist pursed his lips. The sacred clan members didn't even show up. Even if they're investigated, the most they'll do is push these sacred clan servants out and punish them. Amidst the discussion, the void sacred land's supreme Empyrean had arrived in front of Su Zimo. He stretched out a hand and grabbed at Su Zimo's shoulder. His hand transformed into a giant beast claw in midair. Demonic energy filled the air, and it was clear that he wanted to completely cripple Su Zimo's arm. Su Zimo could tell the true form of that supreme heavenly venerate's beast claw right away. Heaven Weave. It had a human face, a beast body, and a pair of wings. It had a violent temperament and a penchant for cannibalism. It was one of the most ferocious beasts. Su Zimo didn't move, as if he couldn't dodge in time. The heavenly weave beast's claws landed on Su Zimo's shoulders and clawed hard. Under normal circumstances, this claw should have been enough to shatter Su Zimo's shoulder. However, its sharp claws only managed to pierce through Su Zimo's clothes and land on his skin and flesh. They were met with great resistance and were only able to sink in slightly before they were rebounded by an even greater force. Bam! The beast's claw was repelled. Su Zimo glanced at the sacred land guards outside the hall. The captain saw this out of the corner of his eye and turned his back, clearly intending to stand aside and watch. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. "How dare you?" The beast's eyes glinted viciously. "How dare you fight back?" Boom. Blood surged from the beast's body. It opened its bloody maw and swallowed Su Zimo whole. It wanted to kill Su Zimo on the spot. "I'll show you what it means to fight back." Su Zimo did not retreat at all and suddenly reached out with both hands. Just as the beast's mouth was about to bite down, he gripped the beast's upper and lower jaw tightly and exerted strength in his arms. Arg! The heavenly weave beast stretched out its throat and let out a miserable shriek. The next moment, blood gushed out of the hall. Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo pressed down on the mouth of the heavens weave ferocious beast and tore its entire body into two from the corner of its mouth. The beast's essence spirit wanted to escape, but Su Zimo hollered and formed a sword with his chi. A white light flashed and sliced the beast's essence spirit into two. The crowd was shocked. That scene was way too gory and shocking. Nobody expected that the seemingly frail and scholarly heavenly venerable could release such terrifying power with a single move. He tore the beast apart with a single move. Nobody expected that Su Zimo would dare to kill someone from a sacred ground. If the beast had unleashed its full strength, it might not have died so quickly. Even it did not expect that Su Zimo would dare to kill it. "How dare you? You're courting death." The remaining 3 sacred tribe servants shouted angrily. The entire process happened too quickly. In just one round, the beast died on the spot. The 3 of them did not even have time to attack. It was only then that the 3 supreme heavenly venerables came to their senses. They propped up their worlds and activated their chi and blood. They even used their bloodline anomalies. The one from the yin-yang sacred ground had pitch-black eyes and a dark aura emanated from him. Behind him, a full moon appeared, but it was dim and dark. The supreme heavenly venerable of the sun-moon tribe. The one from the Tian Fa sacred ground, transformed into his true form. It was an azure dragon and instantly overturned the entire inn. His chi and blood surged and a dragon's roar resounded through the world. Even with the azure dragon bloodline, he was only a servant of the sacred tribe. The one from the space-time sacred ground was still in human form, but the void around him was constantly changing and distorting. He was only a perfected Tao-comprehending realm supreme heavenly venerable, but he could already change the shape of the void. "It's the ancient Yu race!" Someone in the crowd cried out in alarm. The 3 supreme heavenly venerables from sacred grounds had just used all their techniques when Su Zimo arrived. "If you want to take me away, I'll send you on your way first." Facing the 3 supreme heavenly venerables, Su Zimo did not retreat. With a shout, his aura grew stronger and he released his chi and blood. Rumble! Like a volcano erupting, a tsunami swept out, instantly suppressing the chi and blood of the 3 supreme heavenly venerables. End of chapter. Chapter 3292. A huge world rose up behind Suzimo. It was boundless and there was no distinction between yin and yang. It was gray and dark, as if it could destroy and devour everything. Chaotic Tao! The crowd exclaimed. There was a loud rumble. Although the worlds of the yin-yang sacred ground, Tian Fa sacred ground, and space-time sacred ground were filled with traces of Tao, they were unable to suppress the chaotic world. At the same time, their blood qi intertwined and corroded each other. Boom, boom, boom. Suzimo fought 1 against 3. His fists, palms, and fingers collided with the 3 supreme heavenly venerables, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The 3 supreme heavenly venerables trembled and their faces changed. Suzimo's power was too ferocious. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they could not withstand it. Not only that, there was a scorching power hidden within Suzimo's blood qi. Their blood qi was evaporating rapidly and being depleted continuously. Although the 3 supreme heavenly venerables were not from the sacred tribe, they were the most powerful tribe among the thousands of tribes and had unparalleled physical bodies. However, under Suzimo's attack, they could not withstand it at all. At that moment, the fluorescent stone in Suzimo's left eye activated on its own. His eye turned as black as ink and spun slowly, like a bottomless abyss. The world of the supreme heavenly venerate from the yin-yang sacred ground seemed to be pulled by countless threads. Endless power surged into Suzimo's left eye. The world of the supreme heavenly venerate from the Sun-Moon tribe quietly collapsed. After Suzimo had obtained the Zhuzhao and Yuing divine stones in Tianhuang mainland, they had been of great help to his cultivation of eye techniques. However, after ascending to the Great Thousand World, the 2 divine stones had shown their true spirituality and power. After losing the protection of the world, the power of the chaotic world surged and enveloped the supreme heavenly venerate from the Sun-Moon tribe. After being pulled into the chaotic world, he could not use any of his techniques. He was being disintegrated, destroyed, and devoured by the chaotic world. Originally, the 3 worlds were fighting against the chaotic world. Now, only the Green Dragons and the Guyu tribe's supreme heavenly venerates worlds were left. The situation had taken a turn for the worse. The 2 worlds could not bear the burden and were on the verge of collapse. Retreat first. The 2 utmost heavenly masters saw that the Sun-Moon tribe's utmost heavenly master was in a precarious situation and they were unable to save him. They could only retreat temporarily. At the same time, the commander of the ancestral fire Holy Land, who was guarding outside the inn, was shocked by the battle. He couldn't help but shout, "How dare you injure people in the ancestral fire Holy Land?" When the servants of the Holy Land attacked Suzimo, this person had turned a blind eye to it. By the time he reacted, it was already too late. 2 saint servants had already been killed by Suzimo. Boom, boom, boom. Under the command of the leader, the many guards of the ancestral fire sacred ground released their blood qi and propped up a world, surrounding Suzimo and saving the remaining 2 servants of the sacred race. If this commander had been a step slower, those 2 saint servants might not have been able to escape. Suzimo looked at the numerous Holy Lands guards surrounding him with a frosty expression. Killing intent flickered in his eyes, but it gradually subsided. After all, he had been brought to the ancestral fire sacred ground by Uncle Feng. Although these guards were obviously biased, he couldn't kill them for Uncle Feng's sake. The Tian Fa Holy Land's utmost heavenly master looked at the commander and pointed at Suzimo. He said loudly, "Commander Qin, this person fought in the sacred ground and killed 2 of our people. He doesn't respect the rules of the ancestral fire's sacred ground." That's right. The space-time sacred ground's utmost heavenly master also said, "Commander Qin, this person committed murder in public. You have to give the 4 great sacred grounds an explanation." Many cultivators gathered in the surroundings and saw the entire process clearly. The 4 great sacred grounds had attacked first before the green-robed cultivator retaliated. Now, the 2 remaining saint servants had turned around and made many cultivators frown in disdain. Commander Qin said, "Rest assured, my friends. This person's crime is unforgivable. The ancestral fire's sacred ground will not shelter such a murderer. They were the ones who attacked first. Didn't you see? Su Zimo asked coldly. I only saw you disregard the law and kill people. Smiling coldly, Commander Chen looked around and raised his voice. Who saw the fellow Taoists from the 4 great holy lands attack first? Step forward. The crowd fell silent. Although many cultivators despised the sacred grounds for bullying others and disdained Commander Chen for distorting the truth, none of them dared to step forward and speak up for Su Zimo. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that speaking up for him would offend the 4 great sacred grounds and even the ancestral fire sacred ground. Moreover, these cultivators didn't know Su Zimo. This person is truly ruthless. He killed 2 sacred race servants in one move. That's right. Even if the ancestral fire sacred ground spares him, the 4 great sacred grounds won't let this matter rest. The sacred race is here for him. Does he have no choice but to surrender and beg for mercy? The cultivators whispered among themselves, waiting to watch the show. Shackle him. Commander Chen ordered with a wave of his hand. Several guards threw out several chains covered in traces of the great Tao from their sleeves and wrapped them around Su Zimo. Clink, clink, clink. Su Zimo slapped the incoming chains to the ground casually. Commander Chen's expression darkened and he barked coldly with a ferocious gaze. How dare you resist arrest? Chinchio. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the skies. Everyone turned towards the voice and saw a Tao Master standing in the air. Greetings, Tao Master Ning Yen. Commander Chen and the guards of the ancestral fire's sacred ground bowed one after another. Tao Master Ning Yen said indifferently, this person is innocent. You guys can disperse. Slightly stunned, Chen Qiu said hurriedly, Tao Master, this person committed a crime in public and killed 2 people from the sacred grounds. Chen Qiu emphasized the words people from the sacred grounds. Those from the sacred grounds have to abide by the rules of the ancestral fire's sacred ground as well. Tao Master Ning Yen said in a deep voice, since they disregarded the rules and attacked first and were killed instead, they can only blame themselves for not being strong enough. Tao Master, this person was the one who, pointing at Su Zimo, Chen Qiu wanted to argue but was interrupted by a cold snort from Tao Master Ning Yen. Do you really think that you can hide the truth from me? Tao Master Ning Yan's voice was cold as he said slowly, Chen Qiu, as the guard commander of the sacred ground, you have the heavy responsibility of maintaining the order of the sacred ground. However, you can't distinguish right from wrong and invert right from wrong. From today onwards, you're no longer a commander. Return to your original body. Chen Qiu's face was pale and he was sweating profusely. He opened his mouth slightly, as though he wanted to argue. However, when he saw the killing intent in Tao Master Ning Yan's eyes, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart as he lowered his head hurriedly. I'm sorry. When they heard that, many cultivators were secretly speechless. No one expected that today's incident would not only alarm the Tao Master of the ancestral fire's sacred ground, but also end in such a manner. Even a commander who patrolled the sacred ground was stripped of his position. Chapter 3293. The two sacred ground servants knew that they were in the wrong and turned to leave with ugly expressions. Tao Master Ning Yen is wise. The crowd exclaimed in admiration. No wonder he's from the ancestral fire's sacred ground. He enforces the law impartially and doesn't even give face to the other four sacred grounds. After today, it'll be difficult for the four sacred grounds to lay their hands on this person in the ancestral fire's sacred ground. This person is truly lucky to have met Tao Master Ning Yen. If not for him, he wouldn't have been able to escape this calamity. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and thanked Tao Master Ning Yen, who was in midair with cupped fists. Tao Master Ning Yen merely glanced at him indifferently before turning to leave. The next moment, Tao Master Ning Yan's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind and left him an address. Someone is waiting for you there. Su Zimo froze for a moment and thought of a possibility. The inn here was destroyed and reduced to ruins. Su Zimo did not linger here for long. Following the address left behind by Tao Master Ning Yen, he searched along the way and arrived at a relatively secluded alley. There was a mansion here. Su Zimo pushed open the door and walked along a fiery red stone path. After turning around a few rockery, he saw a courtyard. There was a stone table in the courtyard with a gray-robed old man sipping tea alone. It was Uncle Feng. When Tao Master Ning Yen sent the voice transmission, Su Zimo had already guessed that there was a high chance that Tao Master Ning Yen was here because of Uncle Feng. Thank you, Senior. Su Zimo arrived beside Uncle Feng and bowed to express his gratitude. Have a seat. Uncle Feng nodded slightly and poured a cup of tea for Su Zimo leisurely before saying, Your creation Qinglian bloodline has been exposed and the sacred clans of the four sacred grounds are here. After this incident, they won't have a chance to lay their hands on you in the sacred grounds. However, if you participate in the heavenly venerate battle, you might have to face them. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and asked, Senior, you mean for me to show mercy to them? Cough cough. When Uncle Feng heard this, he choked on his tea and coughed a few times. After catching his breath, he said helplessly, What are you thinking about? You've only killed 2 servants of the sacred race. Against the sacred race, your chances aren't high. And it's the 4 sacred ones. Su Zimo did not refute. Through this battle with the saint servants, he was able to get a glimpse of the saint race's combat strength. Every sacred clan member was like the night spirit. They were indeed difficult to deal with. Most importantly, his cultivation was 2 small realms lower than the 4 sacred clans. Of course, he had many cards in his hands. He had fused with the good fortune Qinglian and the red karmic fire lotus. Against the saints, he might be able to fight. Uncle Feng said, What I'm trying to say is that you should give up on the celestial venerate battle. Su Zimo remained silent. He had to obtain the virtuous golden lotus no matter what. It was impossible for him to retreat just because of the appearance of the saints. As if seeing through Su Zimo's thoughts, Uncle Feng said, You can rest assured that if you give up on the celestial venerate battle, the virtuous golden lotus will not appear as the final reward. What do you mean? Su Zimo didn't quite understand. Uncle Feng said, The final reward for the celestial venerate battle has not been announced yet. It will only be revealed when the Supreme Empyrean is decided. If you give up on the celestial venerate battle, I can change the final reward to other treasures and leave the virtuous golden lotus for the next celestial venerate battle. Once you cultivate to perfection of the Tao comprehending realm, you can participate in the next celestial venerate battle. Against the sacred race powerhouses, you will have a greater chance of winning the title of Supreme Empyrean and obtaining the virtuous golden lotus. Su Zimo was stunned. Uncle Feng's words revealed far too much information. Uncle Feng's status in the ancestral fire holy land was much higher than he had imagined. Not only could he change the reward for this celestial venerate battle, but he was even willing to leave the virtuous golden lotus for the next celestial venerate battle, in order to give him a greater chance of obtaining it. This favor could not be said to be small. As a result, Su Zimo felt overwhelmed by the favor he was receiving. After all, the two of them didn't know each other. Uncle Feng had traveled thousands of miles to Kanagai State. Not only had he saved him, but he had also told him about the virtuous golden lotus. He had even arranged for Tao Venerates to come forward and resolve his crisis in the ancestral fire holy land. Now, he was even willing to leave the virtuous golden lotus for the next celestial venerate battle. Could it be that Uncle Feng had received a favor from the chaos holy land in the past? Was he doing this just to repay the favor? Su Zimo suppressed his doubts and asked, "When will the next celestial venerate battle begin?" Uncle Feng said, "It will be 100 million years later." The celestial venerate grand meeting was only held once every 100 million years. Su Zimo frowned slightly. It was too long. He simply couldn't wait that long. Creation Qinglian had already been exposed. To him, the fastest way was to raise his cultivation base and break through to the next realm. Only then could he release Lin Meng and the others to deal with the upcoming crisis. Uncle Feng said, "You can cultivate in the ancestral fire holy land for the next 100 million years. No one will be able to hurt you." Su Zimo shook his head slightly. Even so, it was impossible for him to cultivate here for 100 million years. Dai Yu's whereabouts were still unknown after she ascended to the Great Thousand World. After he raised his cultivation base and gained the ability to protect himself, he would go look for Dai Yu. If they waited here for 100 million years, there were too many things that could happen during that time. "Thank you for your kindness, Senior," Su Zimo said in a low voice. "I still plan to participate in the Celestial Venerate battle." "Are you sure?" Uncle Feng said, "In a battle of Empyreans, although the Vermilion Bird token can allow you to leave the battlefield at any time, once a great battle erupts, life and death can happen in the blink of an eye. Moreover, you are facing a Saint race powerhouse, so you might not have the chance to use this token to escape." Su Zimo had learned some information about the Celestial Venerate battle over the past few days. Every Celestial Venerate participating in the battle would carry a Vermilion Bird token. If the situation was bad, they could activate the token at any time to leave the battlefield and escape danger. "I haven't fought against the sacred race before. It's a good chance to try it out." Su Zimo smiled. "Up to you." When Uncle Feng saw that Su Zimo was determined to leave, he did not try to persuade him any further and stood up. "You can cultivate in this courtyard for the next few days. No one will disturb you." Su Zimo thanked him once more. After hesitating for a moment, Su Zimo asked, "Senior, will there be any other trouble for resolving the conflict between me and the 4 sacred grounds this time round?" Although the 4 sacred grounds were the ones who attacked first, 2 of them had died and the remaining 2 returned empty-handed. Even if it was just 2 servants, it was something that the 4 sacred grounds could not tolerate. The sacred race experts of the 4 sacred grounds would definitely be dissatisfied with the ancestral fire sacred ground after encountering such a huge setback. One could imagine the pressure Uncle Feng was facing. "It's not trouble," Uncle Feng lightly said. "Dao Sovereign Ning Yen impartially enforces the law and acts according to the rules of the sacred grounds. Even if the 4 sacred grounds are dissatisfied, they can't say anything. However, they will definitely vent their anger on you. I cannot help you in the Celestial Venerate battle, so you must be careful." After saying this, Uncle Feng's figure faded into the void, vanishing from sight. End of chapter. Chapter 3294. After Uncle Feng left, Su Zimo sat in silence and pondered. Until now, he still did not fully trust Uncle Feng. After all, he had encountered the Academy Patriarch in the Middle World. He would naturally be wary of such a stranger who suddenly appeared. After entering the Qianquan Academy, he had sensed something unusual, so he gradually became wary of the Academy Patriarch. But until now, he had not found anything wrong with Uncle Feng. If there was anything wrong, it would be that Uncle Feng was too good to him. He showed great kindness but did not ask for anything in return. His creation Qinglian had caused the sacred clans of the 4 sacred grounds to show up and fight for it. But Uncle Feng intended to give him the Golden Lotus of Merit and was even willing to give him a chance to fight for it. Of course, neither the creation Qinglian nor the Golden Lotus of Merit were of much use to Dao Manipulation Realm experts. Dao Manipulation Realm experts needed to cultivate how to better control the Great Dao and the power of the Great Dao. The creation Qinglian and the Golden Lotus of Merit would not provide much help in this aspect. But for Dao Comprehension Realm Heavenly Venerables, especially those who cultivated the Life Great Dao, Wood Great Dao, or Metal Great Dao, the creation Qinglian and the Golden Lotus of Merit could help them better comprehend the Great Dao. Su Zimo could not figure out anything and could only put this matter aside for now. He could only take one step at a time. The most important thing for him was to obtain the Golden Lotus of Merit. Ancestral Fire's Sacred Ground. In the Vermilion Bird Hall. Heavenly Venerate Zhu Liangji of the Ancestral Fire's Sacred Grounds sat on the main seat. The sacred clans of the 4 sacred grounds sat on both sides of the hall, chatting happily. We haven't seen each other for many years. It's a rare chance for us to reunite. I didn't expect it to be because of the creation Qinglian. Zhu Liangji chuckled. The creation Qinglian is of no use to my cultivation, but it happens to be useful to my Dao partner's Great Dao. The man who spoke had long black and white hair. His eyes were bright and his breath was long. He was Fu Tsangtian of the Yin-Yang Sacred Ground. I must have the creation Qinglian. A green-haired woman in green clothes spoke slowly. Her tone was unquestionable. This girl had 2 horns on her head. As her eyes moved, a green light flashed. She was Qing Yan from the Tian Fa Holy Land. There's no need to argue now. When we get Qinglian's good fortune, we'll decide who gets it based on our own abilities. A blond man said with a smile. This person had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His eyes seemed to contain the primordial chaos of the universe, and his smile was warm and genial. This was the space-time sacred land Xialin. Zhu Liang said with a smile, Good fortune, Qinglian has come to my ancestral fire's sacred land. You've made me a little tempted. Among the 5 was a tall and sturdy man. His eyes were closed and his face was expressionless. He didn't move or speak at all, like an iron statue. It was Lai Hua from the Void Sacred Land. Right at this moment, the sound of clothes fluttering in the wind came from outside the main hall. Following that, 2 figures barged into the main hall. Their faces were ghastly, and there was even a hint of blood in their breathing. It was obvious that they were injured. These 2 people were the 2 sacred race servants who had just escaped from Su Zimo's hands. What happened? Qing Yan of the Tian Fa Holy Land asked coldly. Where's Yu Xian? Fu Tsangtian of the Yin-Yang Sacred Land frowned when he saw that only 2 people had returned. Xie Lin of the Space-Time Sacred Land also looked over with a smile. In reply to Master, the servant from the Yin-Yang Sacred Land hurriedly knelt on the ground. After a moment of hesitation, he said, We failed. When the time comes, we'll ask the Ancestral Fire's Sacred Land to hand over the murderer of my sacred race servant and let us deal with him. This request isn't too much, is it? Zhu Liang fell silent. Lai Hua from the Void Sacred Land suddenly spoke up. Blood for blood, blood for blood. With that said, the 4 saints didn't say anything else. They stood up and left. Dao Sovereign Ning Yen. Zhu Liang frowned slightly and ordered the servant beside him, Go and find out where the green lotus of creation is staying in the Holy Land. As you command. The holy servant's figure flickered, and he disappeared from the hall. Not long after, the holy servant returned and gave him an address. He asked, "Master, do you want me to send someone to restrain this person? Even I can't touch that place. How can you enter?" Zhu Liang was shocked when he heard the address. He hurriedly reprimanded the servant, his expression uncertain and thoughtful. Chapter 3295. Ancestral Fire's Sacred Ground. Uncle Feng stood outside a secluded courtyard with his head slightly bowed. His expression was respectful. How did the four sacred grounds know that he has Qinglian's bloodline? After a long while, a voice came from the courtyard. It sounded like a question, but there was a hint of authority in it. Uncle Feng thought for a moment. When he fought the 5 Poison Palace Dao Master in Canopy Guy State, he released a bloodline phenomenon. That Dao Master must have revealed it to the Poison Saint. "Why didn't you kill the 5 Poison Palace Dao Master?" There was a hint of coldness in the voice. Uncle Feng explained, "Even if you killed the Dao Master, there were many poisonous insects watching the battle. Then you should have killed them all." Before Uncle Feng could finish, the person in the courtyard interrupted him. "I didn't think it through. Please forgive me, Master." Uncle Feng hurriedly lowered his head and apologized when he heard the person in the courtyard blaming him. The surroundings quieted down. The person in the courtyard didn't respond for a long time, and the atmosphere became extremely tense. Even with Uncle Feng's cultivation, a fine layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. It was clear that he was terrified. After a while, Uncle Feng seemed to be unable to bear the pressure. "I tried to persuade him to give up on this heavenly venerate battle. When he reaches the perfected Tao comprehending realm, he can participate in the next heavenly venerate battle and have a better chance of obtaining the virtuous golden lotus." "What did he say?" The voice in the courtyard sounded again. Uncle Feng said, "He's a little stubborn and still wants to participate in this heavenly venerate battle. I can't persuade him anymore. But don't worry, Master. As long as he stays away from the sacred race, it'll be difficult for them to meet him at the foot of the Flame Mountain. And with the Vermilion Bird token, he shouldn't be in any danger. As for the final battle, there are only 10 spots. With the sacred race there, he probably won't have a chance to enter the final battle, let alone meet them." The person in the courtyard fell silent again. Uncle Feng asked tentatively, "Should I go and stop him by force?" "Ignore him." The person in the courtyard snorted. "It's better if he's dead." Uncle Feng fell silent. He didn't dare to casually accept this. The deaths of 2 people from the ancestral fire Holy Land caused quite a stir. In the greater Thousand Worlds, no one, no force, could challenge the Holy Lands. But this time, someone had killed 2 people from the Holy Lands in public. One could imagine the commotion it caused. As the heavenly venerate battle drew closer, more and more cultivators from all over the great Thousand World gathered at the ancestral fire's sacred ground. The deaths of the 2 people from the ancestral fire's sacred ground made the heavenly venerate grand gathering even more attention. On this day, the Battle of the Empyreans had officially begun. All Empyrean powerhouses participating in the war had to head to the southern side of the Holy Land near a giant transmission array to receive a Vermilion Bird token before entering the battlefield. The Battle of the Heavenly Venerables in the Ancestral Fire's sacred ground consisted of 2 parts. It was divided into the Elimination Battle and the Final Battle. The so-called Elimination Battle was to cross the 4 flame mountains of the Ancestral Fire Holy Land. Only the 10 Empyreans with the shortest amount of time had the qualifications to enter the final battle. According to legend, these 4 flaming mountain ranges had existed since the establishment of the Ancestral Fire Holy Land, and they were respectively the Myriad Spirit Mountain Range, Skyburn Mountain Range, Six Sting Mountain Range, and Nether Mountain Range. In Wanling Mountain, his combat strength can be unleashed to the extreme. As for Qinglian of the Creation Realm, she is from the plant race and is naturally afraid of fire. In the 4 flaming mountain ranges, she will definitely be suppressed. If the 2 of them were to bump into each other, Su Zimo would most likely be doomed. Chen Xiu took the Vermilion Bird token and looked coldly at Su Zimo. "You'd better pray that I don't find you." Su Zimo smiled faintly. At that moment, another voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Are you Su Zimo? The voice was rather young, like that of a young girl. Su Zimo ignored it. Not long after, the voice sounded again. You are Araki Takashi, right? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he ascended to the Great Kiliakosm, he had never used the Dao title of Araki Takashi because he was afraid of causing trouble for himself. After all, Wu Dao's true body had joined forces with the Fiend Master and Evil Emperor to crush the 9 heavens and suppress the masters of the heavenly courts. In the Great Kiliakosm, there should be very few people who knew that he was Araki Takashi. However, he had no impression of that young voice at all. Su Zimo was expressionless as he surveyed his surroundings, wanting to find the source of that spirit consciousness. However, there were many heavenly venerate experts gathered in the surroundings. There were a total of 100,000 people and their auras were mixed and noisy. There were also many people communicating with their spirit consciousnesses. That spirit consciousness was mixed in and it was difficult to detect anything. It could only roughly determine a direction. Seems like it's you. The young voice sounded again. You don't have to look for me. I'm here to tell you a piece of news. Listen carefully. Sister Dai is in Xianpin Mountain. If you want to see her, go and look for her. When he heard that, Su Zimo's expression changed. He could not determine the location of the person and could not ask with a voice transmission. However, since the little girl knew that he was Araki Takashi and came specially to look for him, there was a high chance that the sister Dai mentioned by the little girl was Daiyu. Su Zimo had once thought that he would look for Daiyu after his cultivation improved and he had the strength to protect himself. However, he had no idea where to start looking. The only clue might be with the evil lord. However, he did not know where the evil lord was either. To think that he would hear about Daiyu's whereabouts from a stranger in the ancestral fire's sacred ground. How was Daiyu after reincarnating? Did she still have the memories of her previous life? Where was Xianpin Mountain? Who was that little girl? Was that news real or fake? Amidst his surprise, Su Zimo gradually calmed down and many doubts flashed through his mind. He waited patiently for a long time. However, the little girl seemed to have disappeared and did not send any voice transmissions.